think it came in an email.
No, it's the agenda's supposed to be on here too. It won't come out.
And
It's under an email with
Yeah, it's
from
already,
Dylan.
because the
It's
invite
not in the
came from
calendar.
Kelly, so
yeah, it's
Oh.
supposed to show up there.
I'll resend it if it would help, Brian.
Please, then you want to.
Fine,
I can't
anytime.
put
We are live, folks.
Good morning. Let us begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral, present, and future territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Today, we gather with the intent followed by the Living Peace and Friendship Treaties, with respect, cooperation, and coexistence. I call this meeting of Town Council to order. It is July 14th, 2026. I will ask for approval of the agenda. Thank you. Moved by Councillor McCarron, seconded by Councillor Carver. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. Acceptance of the minutes, item 2. The regular council meeting of June 25th, 2026. The draft minutes. Yes, Councillor Boone, sorry. Seconded. Okay, we accept them. There are no errors or omissions. Okay, thank you. We will accept them. Announcement by any council members. Any business to help communities in bloom or something, Councillor Carver?
I'll just make another pitch for Communities in Bloom and remind people that it's not just about a pot of petunias. It's really about communities blooming. And our local committee is comprised of 10 different organizations. So we have that whole network and web of connections across the whole community. So that's one way that we are actually helping to make the community bloom through all those connections. And the judges are coming next week to evaluate us on all sorts of factors ranging from environmental action to landscape, tree management, florals. So a wide variety of things. Is going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
And council members, you have a part in all this. There's a meeting that you have received notice of for, I think, the 22nd. Is it at 10 o'clock or 10:45?
Yes, 10.
Yep, there's one there.
I don't have it on this agenda. It's
That's right. We did it before. We
10:30.
gathered here and answered questions. It's not mandatory, but it's we can all be here.
I think the invitation would have come from Eric, I believe.
Yeah, it's 10:30 on the 22nd.
Okay. And the CEO and I will be meeting them bright and early at the head of the Bayway. So in the morning, and then rejoining here at Council Chambers. So we want to offer them a warm welcome as well. So I just want to say thank you to all the groups who made Canada Day very special organically here in Mahone Bay. There was activity going on from morning till evening, and the town was very much full of good cheer and hospitality, and a very, very big crowd here for, numerous places that have special events and parades and whatnot. But Mahone Bay was a really busy day, and also, the teaser, I think, started some of their 75th anniversary of being the oldest gift store in Canada. They had, and they raised funds for Elder Dog during that day, which is wonderful as well. So thank you to everyone who made Canada Day very special here in Mahone Bay. Lots of good music and fun. So it just shows what spirit we do have here in Mahone Bay.
Excuse me, Mayor,
Yes.
before we had regrets from Deputy Mayor.
He's coming later.
I see.
Yes, he's at another appointment, so he will be coming. Is there any public input? No public input, okay, and there are no presentations, so we'll move along to correspondences. Item 6.1, we have an email from Premier Houston. Support for municipal electric utilities in repayment of outstanding NSPI costs. This was deferred from June 25th. It came in kind of a bit late, so that was on the item list. 6.2, social housing action.
Your worship,
yes.
before we go on, it was deferred for a reason, I believe. No,
It was, yeah.
It was.
so,
Yeah, I mean, I know that Councillor Feeney was the one who, or Deputy Mayor Feeney was the one who actually suggested the deferral, and
Oh,
then he's not here to speak to it.
oh, okay.
I think it was deferred in the expectation that there might be some additional information coming.
Yeah.
And I think some additional information has come, although not necessarily in the formal way that we were hoping to be able to revert to. I wasn't at the last area board meeting. I don't know if we need to defer this again.
Well, if you're waiting for something very specific in writing, yes. I mean, it's a good news story, but it's not official
It's
yet,
something
yes.
that has to go to cabinet yet.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think that's.
So I
that's
guess the
the whole-
question is, if there's an expectation we may get some more positive news, do we need to defer this correspondence further, or just, proceed and file and receive further news when we receive it?
Probably defer it further until we do hear. I mean, it may not get to cabinet until September. We don't know. Or maybe we just want to take it off the list for now and bring it back.
That was my thought.
That's probably easier to do because,
It's gonna be on every meeting until we
yeah,
have more.
and cabinet doesn't always meet like it does this year.
It's for the audience, the news is we do have indication of something more
Yeah.
positive to come.
So 6.2, Social Housing Action Coalition, requests for feedback. Any thoughts there?
I actually was the one who asked the coalition let's opened it to the soda update. Asked the coalition to check in with councils about what they need from, I'm on the wrong agenda. What councils need from the Housing Action Coalition. So I believe in the message, there's a little survey. And how would we like to address that?
Yeah, it seems like it's very general in terms of the questions. Like it's,
Asking us for suggestions.
So, I mean, it certainly, the question here is just how do we want to respond to it? One response or.
So just thinking on the fly, my thought right now is to refer it to the Policy and Strategy Committee, or I could send around a message with the questions in it specifically to frame it up for a Policy and Strategy Committee. Does that work? I mean,
Yeah, I think that, they're priority pillars. I think maybe we could discuss that a little further at policy and strategy, because I'm not sure, what do we contribute and what's their focus?
we contribute members
Yes, yes.
in the form of a delegate and an alternate.
But what's their vision and mission? I don't know, just a little unclear to me, what.
You'd like more information about their raison d'etre? Their
Yeah,
mission?
I know they've been going for a long time, like what,
Are they actively participating? Are they there as a warm body as opposed to, and, I find on some of the appointments outside of council, often there is no attendance by the municipal reps, or sometimes they just attend the meetings, they don't take on extra responsibilities because their plates are full as it is. And so are we serving a a purpose,
Yeah,
maybe that's more.
Well, as a designated representative, I could undertake to draft a very short summary of my involvement since 2012. And the mission and strategy, they did include some information about their current strategic plan, which gives you some information, and put it on the agenda for the September policy and strategy. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the next one that we'd have the opportunity to add it to. I don't know what the timeline they're hoping to hear back, but you would hopefully know that.
I'll just let them know that's the best we can do.
Okay,
And maybe they have an annual report that I don't know if we could recirculate to that out there. If
Yeah.
you're thinking about what council could have in preparation, at least if there's an annual report or last couple annual reports.
okay, all right, thank you for that, Councilor Carver and Councilor McCarron. Now I have to get back to my, yes,
Does that need a motion to refer it to the committee?
oh,
Go ahead.
yeah, I move that the question, correspondence from South Shore Housing Action Coalition be referred to policy and strategy in September.
okay, moved by Councilor McCarron, second by Councilor Carver. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 6.3, Linda Schnitzer.
Schneider,
Right, okay, thank you, sorry about that. Clearland Road sidewalk. Any discussion?
So I can just.
All I was gonna say, there are many desirable sidewalks so we need to take a look at, and this can be part of it, but I wouldn't see it as being part of the existing Clearland Road project.
Okay.
So, yeah, so then to clarify, it's not.
It's
Right.
not part of the project, and we did assess, the cost of adding the sidewalk, and so there will be expansion potential there for a sidewalk. It's certainly taken into consideration. But at this time, it was just decided to be too much and could be added, if future levels of pedestrian use would justify so, especially if there were housing development on Clearland Road.
Councilor Carver.
So having heard that information from the CAO, I would move that we send a letter to Linda Schneiderite saying, summarizing what Mr. Hyde just
Okay,
explained about there will be space for the future.
all right, and second by Councilor Kaufman, thank you. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay. And is that to be signed by just council in general or mayor?
generally correspondence is sent from the mayor on behalf of council.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right. There is item 6.4 from the Mahone Bay Center co-chairs, parking and travel surface request. Any discussion on this?
Comment that, I have addressed it somewhat in
Yes.
a report further down on the
Okay.
agenda, so we could get into the substance of it down there.
Very good, all right. Their motion to accept the correspondence in general. Thank you, Councilor Kaufman, and second by Councilor Boone. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Moving along to staff reports. The staff report to council. Please, there are numerous items there. Councilor Wilson, did you have your hand? No, okay, sorry. Are there any areas that want to be? Yes, Councilor Carver.
I have a question about number 5, the revised snow and ice control policy. It refers to inclusion of the bayway for winter maintenance, and I wondered about the winter maintenance on the track at the sports field, community field. Is that maintained in the winter?
It's not.
Cleared in the winter?
It isn't now, no.
Is there any plan for it?
There hasn't been. I talked to Jonathan about it last year. Essentially where the Bayway is a sidewalk, like it is the only pedestrian option there on the roadway, so we're treating it, yeah. Not the council couldn't request that to consider adding the track at the field, but, the field isn't maintained and other recreational spaces aren't maintained, so it just kind of, it would be a bit of a different approach if we started to try. I was so deep with snow last winter that I couldn't really take the dog around it for a couple of months, and he missed it for sure, but.
Okay,
I might consider bringing that back at another time.
And even more broadly, the subject of like winter use of our, various recreational assets is an interesting point to consider. But obviously capacity of the team, needs, and equipment needs to be considered.
and their sleep time. This winter, I think, was a
Well, it's
very
all priorities,
a very sleepless winter for our on-call public works staff who maintain the salting the road out in the evenings and early mornings, weekends, nights. Okay, anything else?
No, just an observation that 10 asks for consultation is subject to 9 is subject to 10. Put it that way. In other words, you can't get at 9 until you do.
Yeah, yes, that's the case. They've gradually gotten closer together. I think there were a couple of things in between them. Maybe I can merge them.
They may as well merge.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, can I have a motion to accept?
I'm going to accept the report, staff report as presented.
Thank you, Councilor Wilson, second by Councilor McCarron, thank you. All those in favor, signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Report of the clerk on the July 7th public hearing, except you were the clerk for that meeting, correct?
So I will do
Not
that.
our clerk for the meeting today, so, which is the deputy.
So I do have a verbal report, what the clerk would normally read. So bear with me. At council's January 26, 2026 meeting, council received a staff report concerning a list of housekeeping amendments to both land use bylaw and municipal planning strategy, resulting from 2-year use of the new documents, the living documents. At that meeting, council passed the following motion: that the town council direct staff to prepare a schedule of draft municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw amendments and related staff report for the planning advisory committee. A public meeting was not held at the direction of council. This is normally a public information meeting would be held before the consideration of the amendments by the planning advisory committee. But in this case, it was determined that because of the varied nature of the amendments, until the planning advisory committee had the opportunity to give consideration to them, presenting them at a public information meeting would be seen as premature. So the planning advisory committee did receive a staff report reviewing the request on April 7th and discussed at April 7th and April 5th regular planning advisory committee meetings, May 5th. The committee made a positive recommendation to council at the May 5th meeting. At council's May 28th, 2026 meeting, the council received the recommendation and passed the following motion. The council give first reading to the proposed housekeeping amendments to the town's land use bylaw as presented. Public hearing was held according to due process on July 7th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. One member of the public was in attendance. No verbal or written submissions were received to the hearing. And so therefore, that is the report of the clerk, and the second reading on the proposed housekeeping amendments to the planning strategy and municipal and land use bylaw would be in order.
Okay, thank you, CAO, who was acting as clerk for the meeting last week. Going on to is there any action on that we need to take?
Yeah, you would need to make a motion for second reading. So
Okay.
essentially to give second reading is to confirm the process and actually make the changes to the bylaw.
And Councilor Carver?
This is a question about procedure. I found to make make a motion for an amendment to the main motion, which would be to give second reading. Do I need to wait until the main motion is made, or could I go first? Is that, just not quite sure.
So I know that you wanted to make a proposal to do a second reading for less than all of the
Yes.
proposed amendments. I think that is in order as an alternative to giving second reading to all of the amendments. So you kind of want to get out with your alternative motion before anybody makes a motion to second reading to all the amendments.
Okay.
If the rest of the council is inclined to hear that.
Well, I would like to do that. I would like to make a motion that the tree provision clauses be exempted from the proposed housekeeping amendments and referred for full review and analysis outside the housekeeping amendments as that's the motion.
Okay, and Deputy Theo, did you get all that?
It's being recorded, I can get it.
Okay, all right,
But did everybody else in order to
Yeah.
understand what's being
No, I
proposed?
don't understand.
no,
And I don't, we don't have a second of that, so.
if somebody wants to say.
Could you repeat?
To repeat it, I'll just give as preamble. The planners did mention in their housekeeping report that if desired to keep the sections about trees, they would need a full review and analysis outside of the housekeeping amendments. And so my motion is that the tree provision clauses be exempted from the proposed housekeeping amendments and referred for full review and analysis outside of the housekeeping amendment, the housekeeping amendments.
I'll second.
This second by Councillor McCarron.
And then I'll just maybe add, so for clarity, I guess this motion can obviously stand. I think I was expecting you to just move to give second reading to the amendments, accepting these two amendments.
Well,
But this motion could obviously stand, and then if it passes, then that motion that I just referenced could be made. And if it doesn't, then the motion to just give second reading to all the amendments could be made. So it makes sense to debate the motion that's on the floor, I think.
Councillor Wilson.
Doesn't this, if we accept this, doesn't this require us to go right back to first reading with the main?
It wouldn't in the sense that these things that are being proposed for amendment have already gone through the process. So you're just removing something, you're just not going second reading on that. Everything be going the second reading on has gone through the process for public consideration and hasn't received any feedback. So pulling those two particular clauses and not amending them doesn't change the fact that everything you would be proposing to amend has been vetted and hasn't been changed.
Okay,
So I don't think it invalidates that second reading.
so, okay, if I may ask an additional question. The recommendation at the meeting from the planning people was, basically their comment was, this is a blunt instrument that does not work well in the land use bylaw context, and it is best referred back to council, figure out if they want to do their own bylaw or not, which is very different from what is being proposed in this motion.
And I would definitely agree that that is definitely the spirit by which PAC recommends it.
Councillor Carver.
As chair of the Climate and Environment Committee, and there is a committee report further along in the agenda. The members of the Climate and Environment Advisory Committee felt strongly that and have made a recommendation to council that the tree clauses be retained until such time as an alternative tree retention mechanism is in place.
That could be 20 years from now.
But my motion also suggested that there is a way of reviewing and analyzing the current statements to see if there is an alternative version that suits better.
Councillor McCarron.
I feel like we're chasing our tail on this one. that we agree that it's important that we pay attention to our trees. And we should build it into the land use bylaws, and now we want to take it out, but no, we don't really want to take it out, we want to, I don't see how we're gonna come. To get something that's enforceable, that's agreeable to the community, that we can live with, it will go around and around and around. Yes, our trees are important.
And not intrusive to private property.
Yes, yeah,
Too.
yeah,
That
enforceable.
needs to be, yes, a consideration. CAO?
I'm not gonna be able to provide some kind of an easy way out, but I just, I wanted to clarify again that when these provisions were included in the land use bylaw during the Plan Mahone Bay process, the company, Upland, who were hired to advise on this, and the planners that we contract from Chester, suggested that the clause as written would not achieve the objectives set out in the planning strategy with respect to tree retention. And in the 2 years hence, they have, based on actual experience and what permits have applied for and where this has been used, come back and said, in fact, it has not only not achieved its objectives, but had a detrimental effect with respect to the objectives. And the Planning Advisory Committee concluded that, in fact, these clauses in the bylaw are less than useless with respect to tree retention. And that if the town is serious about tree retention, some other mechanism would need to be developed. So, at the end of the day, I think the question is there an interest in developing another mechanism? I think that it's very clear from all of the folks that we have asked to advise council that this mechanism is ineffective.
And if I may,
Yes, Council Wilson and then Council Fiend.
looking at the overall picture, I can't help but remark that we sometimes seem to be working on tree retention as though we were living at the corner of Bay and Bloor. And we're not. I mean, the town is 52% trees as it sits. And there are certainly places where we need better canopy structure, Pleasant Street being one of them. It's being worked on. But generally speaking, this is a solution in search of a problem.
Councilor Feeney?
Well, my daughter actually lives on the corner of Bay and Bloor, and I can tell you there's not a tree to be seen in any direction. There is a nice Rolex store there. Just a couple things, just catching up. Appreciate that I'm tardy for the meeting. So I think the context for the original bylaw was meaningful in that there was a stalemate, and we were having a difficult time getting to the point where we were going to be in a position to recommend it to council to get ratified, and that stalemate had dragged on for many months. So I agree, Dylan, that is the consultants did have that view. Yet sometimes the consultants need to be informed about like the political imperative to strike a grand bargain. And at that moment in time, there was an imperative to strike a grand bargain, and we did, and that came in the form of the tree protection clauses, as flawed as they have subsequently been found to be. So I'm very empathetic to the views of the committee, who I think have continued to give council great advice. But it's not crystal clear to me like what the resolution is, other than, I think to Catherine's point, we've gone round and around the mulberry bush on this. We did have first reading. This issue around the tree clause, the tree protection elements were discussed. We went to the public meeting. We did not hear a single letter. We did not receive a single letter, nor did we receive a single personal intervention at the public meeting. We're here now for second reading, and I think we've kicked this around quite a bit. Look, I'm prepared to vote on the motion, knowing that the tree bylaw was what I thought was a slain dragon in 2024, and I'm ready to let it die for a little bit, knowing that we are making large investments in the tree canopy. Like we're targeting this challenge around the density of the tree canopy through investment. That's what we're doing. We're spending money on Pleasant. We're spending money on the waterfront. We had a meeting on Friday morning about 20 new trees for the various cemeteries. My sense of things is as a collective, council will continue to support appropriations for more and more and more tree planting. That's our strategy. And I just think we just need to be consistent on, are we trying to solve this problem through the bylaw, or are we going to try to solve this problem through spending? And I've come to the conclusion that the time has come now that we should just take the latter. We should keep making our investments, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year in tree planting, and knowing that we're having too many struggles with the bylaw. So I'm not really happy that we've removed the clauses, knowing how hard it was to get them implemented at the beginning. But I think the ship has sailed on that point. So I'd be prepared to support I'm of the mind that we support the bylaw in its second reading format, but that's just one opinion. What do you all think?
Well, we're on the motion that Penny has introduced, to go along with a follow-up motion. Councillor Carver.
Well, first of all, to Councillor Wilson's allusion to Toronto, my recent visit in March. So I'm traveling through downtown Toronto. There are many, many areas in downtown Toronto where they have medians with many trees in downtown Toronto, carefully selected and planted. So I don't think that's an appropriate comparison. Or the motion, in fact, suggested a couple of options. One was to hold those items that are currently in the land use bylaw, and consider how they could be changed to meet the various needs, and whether that be done by staff, in collaboration with committees. That is one option, is to workshop those tree provisions, and until such time as we have more information about the possibilities of a tree bylaw. The mayor suggested it might take 20 years to establish a bylaw. I can't accept that it would take that long to establish a bylaw. And I have another motion to request a staff report on the merits of establishing a tree bylaw, which was recommended by the Planning Advisory Committee. And thirdly, this was, as I noted earlier, a recommendation from the Climate and Environment Committee that the land use bylaw not be left mute on the question of trees until there's something else in place.
Councillor Falconer?
Well, having been on the Planning Advisory Committee, my position is fairly clear that what we have doesn't work. And I don't believe revisiting the same issue, the same matter in the same way is promising. So that would be my take on.
Okay.
Mary, could you just refresh my memory on the motion? This is to make amendments to the second reading, second reading version.
This is coming. No, we haven't done that. Councillor Carver has introduced a pre to that motion.
Okay.
Another motion. So
Yeah, this motion that is on the floor does remove parts of what would then go up for second reading.
yes.
So it's essentially, the motion is to pull those clauses in relation from the trees, from the amendments that are going forward. But it's not the second reading motion itself.
No, the second reading motion, I just want a reminder that Councillor Popperman and Boone cannot vote on because they were not at the hearing. So you can vote on this motion.
So, Mayor, I wonder, is there any virtue in just deferring the second reading of the land use bylaw housekeeping amendments? Should we, defer that discussion to next month, and then over the next month, either one, come back with a final version that either leaves the clauses in or removes the clauses and proposes an amendment? and proposes a tree bylaw, of which I think our history shows we have a very difficult time on getting it approved, getting it passed at this table.
Just
Yeah.
procedurally, I don't think that would be the way to go. I think you can and should proceed to amend the land use bylaw with respect to the other things the PAC recommended, regardless of how this motion goes. Because otherwise you're back to square one. You would need to go out to a first reading, go through the process again. Everything else has been vetted. Nothing else has received feedback. There are a bunch of independent clauses. There's no interrelationship between any of the other things that are being recommended. So, I mean, councils obviously can go back to the beginning of the process, but I don't see any need for it.
Fair enough. I'm just wondering about the cadence. So we had a first reading, we had a presentation from the planners, we had a public information session, we had a public hearing, we're back for a second reading, and we're making amendments now. I'm just wondering about,
Councillor Wilson, who is chair of the PAC.
Yeah, well, we're not making amendments now. We have a motion to make amendments now, which can pass or fail. I think would be wise of us to proceed because of all the problems that we would create by not proceeding. We've got this CAO points out, start over again. I would also just point out, with regard to the mayor's 20-year comment, this process has been ongoing since 2012, so we're now in year 16 with no resolution, so we're getting close to 20 years. So another 20 years. I think we should vote on this motion as it stands.
Someone want to call for the question?
I think you do that. But I'd vote on
You
it.
just say question. Councillor Carver.
Just on that question, I really dislike the process of calling for the question, which itself has to be put to a vote. It is, I acknowledge, a totally very difficult, complex issue, and all the interplay of private property, public property. And one thing of interest to me is that I've learned that some jurisdictions have bylaws that reference public property as distinct from private property and commercial property. So there may be some fiddle room in there around these items. I totally respect people's feelings about private property, and I totally value the community good. So the points about the town being a super achiever in planting trees ourselves is great. But the specter of private property not being well cared for in terms of the tree canopy is a concern. So it's a dialectic, and we've been working on it since 2012. So thank you.
Okay. Ready?
Do you want to read the motion again?
Anybody want the motion read again? No, doesn't seem to be. Okay, all those in favor signify aye. Opposed? The motion is defeated. We will move on.
Commissioner, if you want to-
Yeah. Yes.
For the second reading. I'd like
Yes.
to move to get a second reading for the housekeeping, what's it called? Housekeeping bylaw,
Housekeeping amendments.
housekeeping amendments, the bylaw.
Yeah, it will be the land use bylaw and municipal planning strategy amendments.
Thank you.
Emily has asked me to make sure to repeat that phrase.
I'm sure the clerk has that, so make that motion.
Motion, thank you. Seconder? For the motion? Sorry? Oh, Boone, okay.
Now, I don't know that you can second this.
Oh, I can't.
No, you can't, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
right.
Yeah.
Meany, okay. Okay, all those in favor signify aye. Opposed? Opposed? The motion carries, thank you. Moving on to item 7.3, Bayway Act.
Wait, sorry, Your Worship.
Yes,
In relation to this topic, I have another motion.
oh, okay, Councillor Carver.
We've had discussions about bylaw, which I hope wouldn't take 20 years. But I move that council direct staff to draft a report on the merits of developing a tree retention bylaw for the town of Mahone Bay that includes reference to trees on private, public, and commercial property.
Okay, there's a second.
Second, just for the sake of
Discussion.
discussion.
Okay, second by Wilson, CAO.
I just want to point out, and Councilor Carver, you probably know this, but I assume this motion would sort of preempt, if it were to pass, the motion in the, there's a climate environment recommendation that council directs staff to develop a draft tree retention bylaw. So I just wanted to mention that, that being further down on our agenda, presume it'll be considered if this one doesn't pass, but if this one does pass, it would seem to be then redundant to put that one forward.
So procedurally, which is the correct way to proceed?
This is totally in order, and we're already discussing it. I just wanted to mention, if this motion passed, I would presume that you would not then put forward that motion when we get down to the committee agenda, because we'd want to wait until that report that had been directed had been produced, presumably to recommend or not that direction that was provided from the committee. Or I think it would be a bit redundant for staff to develop the draft while also developing the question of whether we should develop the draft.
Just on the motion. So we've got a very robust and active committee that, I think has a lot of subject matter expertise on this particular topic. I just wonder about tasking staff to do it versus referring the matter back to the committee, asking for the committee to think about workshopping it, and then come back to, and then somehow having the cadence be that it would somehow flow to the policy and strategy planning before it comes back to council as a draft. I think what we've discovered, what we know to be true is that this is going to take a number of iterations, a number of back and forths, a number of compromises. And I just think it's handing this over to staff, thinking that they're going to come down from the mountain with, with a perfect bylaw that's going to be unanimously accepted, I think is wishful thinking.
Councilor Carver.
My motion was about not coming back with a perfect bylaw or a fully fledged bylaw, but a report on the relative merits, because I know that in some communities, if they have them, they hate it. If they don't have it, they want it. I mean, it just always reflects the ambivalence and the tension.
Councillor Wilson and then Huffman, is your hand up?
I just have a question of procedure again. It's because it's gone around the mulberry bush, and excuse the expression, many times on this, and I know we've had motions in the past that have failed. Are we actually allowed to do this again in the absence of any new information, compelling information?
I mean, a direction of staff to produce a report on the merits of it. I don't think that has been voted on and defeated in those terms before.
Like, I wonder about why would we ask staff to talk with the merit? The merits is a political question. It can only be decided by the people around this table. So while staff may have an opinion on the merits, I mean, it's just that, it's just one opinion, and the adjudication of the opinion happens here. So the real question is do we want a tree bylaw? Do we want a bylaw that has tree protections? And we do. Let's not talk about adding to staff's onerous burden of work to determine whether that's, there's merit in it. I think there's merit in it if it can be passed. But the reason why it's not passed was crystal clear in 2024. So I think we should just cut to the chase and say, if we want the tree bylaw, let's start working on it. If we don't think there's any appetite to pick up the flag and run with it, then let's just defer it or push it along. Anyway,
But a motion on the table is about having a study.
Yes.
A study done, not.
Yeah, I would say,
not the
just if
bylaw.
I can understand the deputy mayor's comment to be against the motion on the table, and for consideration of the motion that will come from the committee, not for voting for it, but for having a debate on that question as opposed to on this question.
Like prefer,
Skipping the step and making staff do a report and debating whether
So
we're
this-
willing to develop a
this is
bylaw.
just one view. I appreciate everyone else's opinion, but I'd rather just accept the committee's recommendation and start the heavy lift of developing the tree protection bylaw, of which I'm completely open-minded about, if we can find something we can get passed. But, you know, while I think, you know, I just think that we can skip over the step of asking staff to tell us if there's merit or not. I mean, that's in the eye of the beholder, whether it's for us around the table to determine whether there's any plausible scenario where we get a tree bylaw passed in the next 2 years.
Councillor McCarron and then Carver.
Yes, I'm inclined to look at the motion from the committee. There's knowledge and commitment and passion around these issues on that committee, and I think we can draw on their expertise and their willingness to develop.
But the motion we're speaking
Well,
to
that's
right
right.
now
Yes,
is
so,
not that. It is
I would say let's go with.
sending a study to
So
staff.
understanding if we defeat this one,
Yes,
Yes.
that motion will still be coming up later and that can be debated on its own.
Councillor
Yes.
Carver.
I'm curious about, because I can't remember when the issue of a tree bylaw was last before council. Did anybody be specific about that? I know the deputy mayor has referred to it in, but I can't recall exactly when the question of a tree bylaw was actually considered by council.
Somewhere in my first term, so 2014, plus or minus a year.
So that might be
Well,
the first time it was come up,
I mean,
but it did come up in our strategic planning process following the last election. And it did obviously come up through the Plan Mahone Bay process. So I know it's come up a bunch of times. Has it been voted on in the terms put in the recommendation from the committee? I don't believe so, which is why I think that is in order.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure in Eric's tickle trunk of policies that there's a tree bylaw that's fairly well crafted. There was a reason why we didn't follow through with the implementation of the tree bylaw in its earlier draft forms, which are from 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, is we determined that the path forward was to consolidate it into the land use bylaw. And I mean, I know I don't want to belabor the point, but that was a seminal moment. Like that was the chance. That was the opportunity. Almost everyone around the table voted on it. We voted on it. It had tree protections in the bylaw. And that was, as far as I was concerned at the time, job well done, moving on. So if we're going to revisit the topic now based on the earlier vote, fair enough. I just think let's just be very clear about saying that this is what we're contemplating and let the community know that. Like, let's let the community know that council's contemplating a tree bylaw, which is stewardship on private land, and let the chips fall where they may, and be very crystal clear that if they have an opinion, let us know. So whether we're going to get something back 3 months from now from staff that says there's merit in a tree bylaw, fair enough. I'm sure that they'll craft that to our satisfaction. And then where we'll be, and it will just be in October talking about doing a tree bylaw. So I just think we need to be transparent about this because to Councillor Carver's points, there are strong opinions either way. Like I'm genuinely for tree protection, but not everyone thinks like that. So I just think we just need to be fair, letting everybody know where we're heading.
Okay, CAO, you just spoke, so
This is only in need of completeness on my previous comment in response to Councillor Carver. In 2018, just before I actually arrived with the town, there was a proposal from Talking Trees, a group of residents, that included the request that council commit to the creation of a tree bylaw. So at the very least, it was acknowledged in correspondence in 2018. At that time, we didn't have the Climate and Environment Committee. We were envisioning the Plan Mahone Bay process. I can't see, any specific direction, but I did want to acknowledge that it did actually come forward, at least in 2018 on the official record.
Councillor Carver.
Thank you, CIO, for that information, because I don't have any other information about any time when council has considered a tree bylaw specifically at this table, despite the deputy mayor's references to consideration of bylaws in 2022, 24, 20, and those many years. So as I understand it now, in 2018 was the only time a tree bylaw was mentioned in council minutes, but not considered directly by council. I take the points about staff time and effort. I still think, and a discussion of the relative merits, which would reflect what actually can be achieved and what cannot be achieved in a bylaw, could be folded into a bylaw process. So I'm prepared to withdraw this motion with the consent of the seconder and focus the conversation on the recommendation from the Climate and Environment Advisory Committee that comes later on in the agenda.
Happy to agree.
Were you the seconder again? Oh, you are, Rob. That's what you.
Okay,
Thank
so the motion is withdrawn. Okay. We are going on to item 7.3, Bayway access.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is sort of what the council directed staff to prepare at the last meeting. Hopefully it is relatively complete. I can certainly speak to it in case there's questions or additional details that might not have made it in there. But given the time to turn around, we did consult with the accessibility coordinator and ran some numbers. And I think we're able to find some reasonably good numbers, with the exception of in relation to the stairs. So there are recommendations. If there's any questions, let me know.
Okay.
As noted at the end, the additional scope of work at the VIC, as well as the addition of the walkway, are what are being recommended specifically, but obviously council's prerogative what motion to move.
Councillor Kerr.
I pointed out last week or a couple of weeks ago to Mr. Hyde that I've seen people scrambling up that little slope right beside the end of the St. James, the front end of the St. James parking lot, right beside where the bus, the bookmobile is parked. And it's right at the end of that metal railing.
Right.
Is there a way of actually inserting a stairway there? I mean, I appreciate the plan is to install a walkway through, but that involves going backwards for people. Can you visualize what I?
Absolutely, it's the last thing I could possibly imagine recommending with everything else in here. It's a place where if people are going in the direction that the walkway is going, they'll be completely served by the walkway. And if they're going the other way, they've walked in a loop throughout the parking lot and missed other opportunities. So there was nowhere on our radar where it made sense to add stairs there. In fact, what staff have recommended is the Peace Garden location of garbage cans and possible extension of the handrail to effectively block that so that people will walk the 10 feet to the walkway, because 10 feet away without trotting through the Peace Garden and the green space, there will be a completely barrier-free walkway. And the addition of accessible parking spaces will hopefully help further steer people to the walkway. So yeah, I guess there could be stairs added, and it would be about $20,000 as noted per stairs location. But I would say of the possible stairs locations, that wasn't even one. We looked at 3. That would be a 4th, and I would say it's the lowest priority of the 4 from my take. But yeah, I do know that people are scrambling up the bank, but I think that will be quite different when that Peace Garden area is finished, presuming the walkway is included.
Councillor Poppleman.
Well, there's so many aspects of this. We'll just talk to this particular piece at the moment. Yes, I'm glad to see the pathway through the washroom end and the Peace Garden. That makes perfect sense. I dislike the cost factor of the steps that are proposed by the red arrows, which were the original suggestions. But it's very clear that people are simply walking up those slopes. They are not going to walk to the other end. And similarly, although the slope is less in the next parking lot, it's still a long way to each end. These are longish parking lots. So the loss of half a parking lot or thereabouts in order to create the hatched white lines to direct people to an appropriate place. Don't take it's not much of a loss in terms of parking. I think the fact of the matter is that we know there's an issue. We know that we created that issue, but the recommendation is we don't do anything about it. And I don't think that's acceptable. I think it puts the town at some degree of legal risk because people will climb up. Now, if the other thing that we said is that, well, they're going to climb up anyway, opposite where they are. But the fact of the matter is, if we provided a proper route up, that takes away from the risk that we would otherwise run by ignoring this problem. So as it stands at the moment, with the slope being sodded, as it is right now, actually, it just happened. It'll be interesting to see, because the yellow caution tape, which is stretched across from the iron railing for a distance, is now trampled to the ground. It was this morning, I checked it. Whether people will stop trying to walk up the grass, which would now be nice and slippery, and there are nice pointed pegs there too. And that won't obviously last very long. It's just to try and hold the turf in place instead of it sliding down. So I think to me, reluctance as Anne to spend the money is a situation that was created as a result of the design, and we have to deal with it.
Councillor Wilson.
Three things. One is, generally speaking, I really like this report. I think it's touched all the key bases. I like the fact that the intention is to extend that railing out a bit to discourage people climbing up that part of the bank. So I'm all good with that. I categorically disagree with the notion of putting steps in for a whole bunch of reasons. One is if the steps are here and I'm here, I'm going to walk up the bank anyway. So you could make the whole thing steps, and that might solve the problem, but otherwise it wouldn't. And thirdly, I like the layout at the Vic. I would perhaps quarrel a little bit that the crosswalk should be where the buses are likely to stop rather than the other way around, because that's where the bulk of the people are going to be. And if the walkway is 15 feet away, they're just going to cross the street right in front of the bus. So I would suggest that might be moved. As to the parking, and I'll just go back to Brian's, Mr. Pupperman's comments many times about not being able to back out. I took up the challenge yesterday and went to try it out. Turns out you can turn my SUV around parallel to the road, pull out and go west, I guess it is, with all kinds of spare room. And in fact, you can do it the other way and go east if you want to as well, without a problem with an outback. So I think the parking is fine. So that's it.
Councillor Pupperman.
Well, I guess Councillor Wilson and I are to pretty complete odds on these. And I referred to the matter of people climbing up the bank and accepting the fact that they will climb up the bank. That's not the issue. The issue is that we've created something that people can fall down. And we have erected fences in some places, ropes in others, wooden fences, of all sorts of things to prevent people from falling. This particular case, we have not, except for one particular section with an iron fence against it. The point is that if you don't provide something and people fall, then you can be at legal risk. I've some experience in the matter. But by providing risk, the steps it mitigates it. Not only that, it's a practical matter. These are long parking lots. People want to get onto the Bayway. We should provide means to do so.
Okay, CAO.
So just for a little bit of context, it's a 340-meter stretch from the teaser crossing around to the crossing at the end of the Trinity parking lot. So that's sort of area picture, 340 meters. There are in the plans 5 barrier-free crossings already. So that's one every approximately 70 meters. But there's another one recommended to bring it up to one every maybe 60 meters. The addition of 3 stairs, which would not be accessible or barrier-free, would provide, if you want to look at it as 9 entrance points, so 3 of which are not accessible, 6 of which would be accessible, we're up to 1 every 40 meters. The difference of having an entry point every 40 meters, 60 meters, 70 meters, like those are all acceptable standards. Obviously, the more entry points, the more people would have one. I am aware of no liability considerations in this regard. The addition of the stairs would not be such that it would fundamentally alter the fact that there already are barrier-free entrance points on average every 60 meters throughout the design, which is more than sufficient from a public planning perspective. So again, some people may use the stairs, but I would not be aware of any liability consideration that compel the town to include the stairs. People can walk, or if they can't walk, they can't use the stairs anyway, to the nearest barrier-free entrance point.
Councillor Carroll.
Yeah, just a thought, because I'm mixed on this topic. I agree with Councillor Wilson about the idea that if people are going to go over it, they are anyway. But what about trying one set of stairs and see how it goes as a kind of experiment, and that we learn from that about whether it's useful or not.
I'll just say, if we were going to, I would recommend it be the one at the far end of the handrail, so not the end you were suggesting earlier, but the other one, if that's the steepest point. If we would.
So that is in the Anglican?
Yeah.
Parking.
And it's, if there were going to be one, it's the steepest
Mhm.
point. So I think it makes more sense. And you can't scramble up the retaining wall. So, it's obvious people wouldn't be able to get up in between those 2 points.
Councillor Boone and then Falconer.
Sorry, I've been a little bit quiet on some of this, but I'm kind of mixed here too, because I totally understand Councillor Palfreyman's comments, just because we see it, people are down there right now and they're kind of just climbing the embankment a little bit, and that distance in that first parking lot is quite a distance, like for somebody who's in a wheelchair. Like I realize that in a wheelchair they're going to have to go the distance, so I understand that, but at the same time, just it's quite a distance, to kind of just walk to try to get up something where you're looking for the view right away.
To go for a walk.
To have a set of steps, it's just quite a distance, and I'm open for the idea of a compromise or a suggested compromise, like Councillor Carver says. And I don't know, I'll leave it at that for now. I have some other views on the Vic.
I just want to keep mapping distances, so I just wanted
Okay.
to comment. So just for context,
Yeah.
if somebody parks approximately end of the handrail now, and they're kind of in the middle of the Eglinton parking lot, so there'd be accessible spaces at each end. But let's say they were all occupied, but they found a spot right in the middle and they are in a wheelchair. It's 60 meters along the level parking lot in either direction to reach the entrance. And so I did run the scenario by our accessibility coordinator, whose recommendation was that a 60-meter level path of travel through a parking lot is a reasonable part of barrier access, especially where there were 5 dedicated accessible spaces in that parking lot, 6 actually, and so they would all have had to have been occupied in order for that person to then even be in that scenario,
Right.
which is not especially well.
Okay, now just a minute. Councillor Boone is not finished. He's got more to ask, and then Councillor Palfreyman will be speaking. You'd like to go on the list again? Okay,
It's
just a minute. Okay,
Yeah.
Councillor Boone, you may continue.
Thank you. Is there, so maybe the other question then, is there signs that will be put up about that?
Yeah, so the barrier-free entrance points would each have a sign, and we discussed putting them high enough that you'd be able to see them down the parking lot, so you at least would know that's where you can go. We're discussing the sign, like probably needs to be, a wheelchair accessible symbol, and probably just that, like maybe the words Bayway and a wheelchair accessible symbol. So we're still discussing the final version of those signs, but there is the thought that they would be at each of those 5 or presumably 6 if we have the walkway. And then we put a different type of thing for stairs if we had stairs, because they would be visible behind the cars if they don't have something to indicate where they're located. So.
Sure.
All right, any other discussion there, Council Boone, before we move on?
No, I wanna, I think I just wanna keep the Vic separate from this first one here, but anyway,
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
All right, so Council Hoffman.
Well, okay, if we want to keep the VIC separate, that's probably a good idea, because we're jumping backwards and forwards otherwise. But certainly I have something to say on the VIC situation. Just a question, are there going to be accessible parking spots designated close to each end where the accessible ramps are?
If we add the walkway, it's recommended we add 2 accessible spots beside it, so that's what's shown on the schematic. But there weren't any if the walkway wasn't included, so it's just kind of, we're not gonna bait people to be there and not provide them with a way to get up. But if there is a way to get up, then the recommendation is to add 2 accessible spaces there, which brings the total number of accessible spaces to the street to 10, I believe. It's listed in the report.
Okay, well, we can, I believe that there should be the 3 sets of steps. I heard a compromise. That might be a solution for the time being to see what transpires. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hoffman. Councillor Carver, and then
Yes, I think the CAO may have answered part of my question, that the 2 orange dots beside the Peace Garden would be newly designated parking, accessible parking, is that
and the
correct?
blue
Okay.
were already in there. Yeah.
Okay, the blue, but then up at the other end of the St. James parking lot, there's 2 black dots and 2 blue dots. What,
It just, they're all accessible spaces. If they appear black, it may just.
oh, so that's 4 accessible spaces right there.
Yeah.
At the
Yeah.
far end.
And I
of
misspoke, because actually there'll be 12 in total if we add one to the walkway, because there's one at the teaser and there's one all the way down at the opposite end of St. John.
That's a generous amount of accessible parking spots.
Councillor, okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was going to make the motion, but I'm hearing a rumble that we want to consider the VIC separately, so I'm not quite sure how
Okay,
to proceed.
are we finished this discussion here with the,
Just one brief point, Mayor.
Councillor Feeney?
So beyond the merits of the well-crafted report that I think really does, I think this was an excellent report. You know, we've got in the agenda today, we've got item 6.3, 6.4, and then later on down the meeting, we've got 7.4, a number of unfunded funding requests for a number of community priorities, community interests, community passions, as well as we have a robust capital plan beyond Edgewater. So I guess I'm just really struggling with further investment in 2026 on Edgewater, given how many change requests we've had associated with the project, and how I'm just a little worried that we're ultra focused at this one moment in time on perfecting Edgewater, and we're really making funding decisions that are going to exclude these other opportunities for evaluation for other things in the town beyond Edgewater that need funding. And so, like, I'm having a hard time getting my head around another $125,000 in pluses for Edgewater, knowing that 100% of that money's got to be borrowed. And it wouldn't break my heart for us to say, if these are priorities, there's still going to be a priority in May, next May, or the May after that, or the May after that. And I just wonder, like, what part of this has to happen now? Where is the synergies with existing construction on Clearland Road? Like, what if the CAO has an opinion on cost today versus cost a year from now, and whether there's financial benefit of making a decision now versus what's the financial penalty if we defer some of these decisions for a year or 2 years or 5 years?
Yeah, I don't think there's any impact in that sense. Like, these costs, even though they don't include deployment, are honestly not, exceptionally competitive. I think we get approximately the same costs even with deployment using local contractors who could do any of this work. The steps and the asphalt could be done locally. The walkway is proposed by a local contractor, and their price was more than twice more competitive to what Harbor's contract rate for concrete would have been. So I think if these things were approached next year, it wouldn't be a significant difference in cost. And I do want to, I guess echo the comment that we're not leveraging this money, money spent on these things, whereas the next item on the agenda does present an opportunity for leveraging. It's always a good idea to try to leverage things where you can.
Okay, was there any other, Pelferman?
Well, so we're accepting that the pricing that were given previously may not be the pricing, or obviously it's the pricing that might be achieved by local construction.
Yeah, all of these things, the steps
Right,
along
okay,
could be
fine,
done by
fine.
local contractors.
So we're down to a big scary thing here that sounds absolutely horrendous, which it did. I'd be, but equally, it'd be nice to get something right. As opposed, if it can be considered in the next year, presumably implies that it's it might be a good idea. I'm simply saying that whereas there is an obvious issue, and the obvious issue is primarily at the end of the iron fence, that it would be worthwhile having a local contractor construct steps in that particular location and see how that works and what that does, if anything, to the obvious desire to scramble up wherever you can. We've done something extra where it's an obvious problem. That would be the position that I would prefer to see.
Councillor Wilson?
I'm wondering if we could, if it would be acceptable to make a motion to agree to the fencing extension to prevent people scrambling up that section of the very steep slope, and the obviously necessary sidewalk access through the Peace Garden so people can get out of that parking lot legally, which currently they cannot, and defer the rest of this report to the budget process for next year.
Do you mean to include the Vic stuff or just the steps?
So for the Vic stuff, I don't think there's anything wrong with what the way the Vic is right now. It's not perfect, but it's not any different than it's been for years.
Well, I think Councillor Boone has already said he wants to address something with the Vic. so-
Well, I was just asking whether that would be appropriate. I'm not making that
Okay,
motion.
okay, not making it then into suggestion of a motion. Okay, so Councillor Pelferman and then Boone, we're gonna ask you, we're gonna move
Sure.
along to the Vic,
Sure.
all right?
But-
And, okay,
Just 1 second first. Why on earth would we want to put up more fence as opposed to putting up steps, for heaven's sake? I mean, why not just accept reality that people are going to want to climb up, get up there onto the trail and put the darn steps in instead of extending the fence? It just seems silly to be extending the fence.
So I think you were talking about steps at the far end though, right?
At the washroom end.
Oh, okay. So 10 feet from the walkway, you also feel there should be an additional set of steps? I think I misunderstood because I think that's where the railing extension was discussed, but I thought your pitch for one single set of steps would have been the other end. So we'd have a walkway at one end, we'd have steps at the other end. That's what I earlier had suggested. If I just want to be clear, if you're advocating for steps at the Peace Garden end?
I was, but I missed, frankly, a proposal to extend the iron fence, if that's what we're talking about, to prevent people climbing up. Is that what's with?
Yeah, so I mean, it isn't in the report, but the way that the walkway would then result in configuration of the Peace Garden would be essentially you've got, a walkway that's going in and connecting to the pad as shown on this drawing. And then in between that walkway and the bayway, where the land rises towards the trail, like towards the bayway, there would be a large stone peace symbol garden thing that is being installed at the request of Garden Club. That's the Peace Garden. And then adjacent to that, there would be the garbage cans so that they would be shifted over. And so people trying to cut across the green space there would be going to like a 5-foot space between the garbage can and the edge of a handrail, skirting the back of the Peace Garden, sort of sneaking in there, and it would cause wear and tear on the embankment. You could potentially squeeze some steps in, although they would be quite steep, But you could also just extend the handrail by 2 meters, and then you would not have people scrambling through. And then 10 feet over, there would be a level walkway that they could use. So I guess just from staff's perspective, it seems very redundant to put in the extra steps. And that's where I was saying, you know, it wasn't even in this motion, but what staff were contemplating, since the walkway railing isn't capped yet, was putting just a little extra extension on it. That would eliminate the steepest portion. And then when I said, well, I would recommend steps at one end of the handrail section, to Councilor Carter's point earlier, I meant at the other end. But, you know, obviously,
You mean
I'm not trying
here?
to cause more confusion. Yeah, down there.
Yeah,
I'm confused now.
midway just past the look off.
Yeah, because if you were gonna have only a single set of steps, you would avoid people being stuck by the rail section. And you would have steps that were adjacent to a scenic look off. So that you kind of, you know, if you're only gonna have one set of steps. But it didn't occur to me that there was still advocation for steps right next to the walkway. So sorry, Councilor Pufferman, I'm not gonna step on your point. I'm just trying to make sure everything's clear.
Okay, just a minute, I just wanna make sure, okay, Councilor. Green.
So Mayor, it struck me that council's benefited a lot by doing a 5 to 10 minute walk through, physically go to the site, have staff walk through, point out the demarc points. I think the map does a good job, but I think to Council Pufferman's point, it's conceptually, I think it might be worth our while when we're talking about this kind of expenditure to actually just go walk the site and have, you know, Dylan or Lauren or just point out the elements, and we'd have a much better idea of exactly what we're talking about spending money on. I mean, I'm not sure about people's schedules, but it strikes me that's an hour well spent if we could squeeze that in sometime. I think in the absence of that, you know, is this time sensitive? I know we have a grand opening on the 4th. I can't imagine any of these elements are going to be implemented before that.
I can speak to that point. So
Please.
the walkway and the Peace Garden, I would strongly recommend you authorize it today. I don't think anyone's disputing that it's a good thing to do.
Fair enough.
And that's a separate contractor, Whiting, who did the concrete pad, and they can deploy and get that done quickly, and that we'll get it out of the way. So I recommend we would do at least prove that. As far as the time sensitivity on the stairs, like I said, the stairs can be contracted to a separate party if Harbor's already out of the way. So I think that they can be considered further, not particularly time sensitive. As far as the Vic improvements, there is some time sensitivity, just that if we're doing the paving and we want it to be done when the paving would otherwise be done on Clearland Road,
Okay.
that paving on Clearland Road is about 2 weeks away, so we won't really have another
Wow.
meeting before that. It's looking, it's moving quick. So, not that a local contractor can't do that paving, and to Councilor Wilson's earlier point, that could be done next year. But if we wanted it to be done with the deployment of Miller and their last visit for paving, I would say there's a bit of time sensitivity. Probably still could be timed out to get council's approval at your next regular meeting, but it would be close. So I'd have to go back to the contractors.
Okay,
But the steps, you know, definitely could be looked at independently.
Councilor Boone, you can talk about the Vic now, and then Councilor Wilson, you had the remark. Oh, you had your hand up?
I did.
Oh, I didn't see it. I thought you were just pointing
Oh,
to,
no.
okay, sorry, but Boone, Carter, Carver, and then Wilson, okay.
Are we, because I'm still on parking lots.
Oh,
Fair
okay, okay. Continue on parking lot.
I would like to see us vote separately on the Vic and the parking lots, I hope, if that works. And I still like the idea of steps there, because we've created a pathway, for an accessible pathway from the parking lot to the trail. But people who don't need that accessibility, it would be handy to have a little stepway right there. It's not a must, but I kind of like the idea. But I still like the idea of having one somewhere along the way as a test, a pilot, to see how it works and what people's behavior really is like.
Okay. Any more discussion on the parking lot?
Since there's a level of support, I'm just gonna say, I think what you do to put stairs at that end, if we wanted to, is actually take the handrail back by one segment, put the stairs going to the retaining wall, and have that be in the thatch section with the accessible parking, so you could get it stuck in right along the curb. Because there's no way to have a safe landing on a flat surface at the top of the stairs if they're going into the bayway where it's sloped. So I think what you do is you get it right at the end of the retaining wall to the top of the retaining wall, right at the end, so it's still where people are scrambling up. That's just so that you guys can maybe picture that there. That would be my.
So where am I at?
So we're still talking about.
Can you
the
get
Peace
up this,
Garden.
Duncan? Are you getting these? You
We're still talking about the.
got a map in front of you? Okay.
We're still talking about the Peace Garden and of the. So right where those two orange dots are shown.
Two one shots, okay.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
Put stairs there rather than.
That's just what Councillor Carver and Councillor Palfreyman have been advocating. So I'm just saying, if we were going to put them there, you need this kind of a level landing. So what you could do is you could put them at the end of the retaining wall rather than in the diagonal where people are actually scrambling. Because on the diagonal, they couldn't land in a safe spot at the, so it's only a difference of like 3 feet.
Right,
And just an orientation being diagonally versus straight.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to clarify for the image of it, that would get you a safe landing, because you gotta go straight up onto a flat area for steps.
So no steps here.
It's an either or and, so you guys get to decide. This was an extra set of steps that I didn't even contemplate, a fourth set. that was being
Wilson?
Despair. I would like to move that council approve the accessible walkway across the Peace Garden to the accessible access to the trail, and a 2-year extension of the existing wrought iron fence to the south to prevent people climbing the bank.
Well, that'd be nice.
Could you say that again, please?
Eric, can I say that again?
Yeah, the council approved the accessible walkway across the Peace Garden to the accessible access to the trail, and a 2-meter extension of the iron fence to the slope to prevent people from climbing the bank.
And the receptacles will go in that area as well.
Yeah, so I think the motion.
I need a second.
There's second by Councilor Feeny.
Councillor,
And the accessible parking spaces would happen without needing to be in the motion. We're obligated to put them next to the accessible entrance, so.
Councilor Carver.
In the earlier discussion, when the CAO described stairs going to where the rock wall stops, would that be without the railing extension? Or including the railway extension?
I think it would be difficult if stairs were added in that location that just a second ago I was describing to you. I think it would be difficult to do that and have the railing extension, and I think it would largely be unnecessary because
I see.
the railing extension is kind of a counterpoint to people scrambling up the bank, which they really wouldn't be doing if there were steps there.
Okay, if I may continue on that, then I probably not going to support the motion because I dislike the railing because it feels caged in, and I would prefer having a step there at the end of the rock wall. And I wonder if the mover of the motion would entertain an amendment to that effect. No. Okay, well, I'm going to vote against it.
Okay, Councilor Palfreyman.
Well, I would support Councillor Carver's proposal and not the one that's on the table because of the fence.
Because of the fence. Okay.
Suggest we vote.
I'll just,
Oh, pardon?
can I just?
Yes,
add on
sure.
it? Yeah, so, I understand the reasoning behind that idea, that you want to prevent people from climbing the embankment. I have noticed that fence, like the steel rail fence, it definitely is something that kind of limits people's view of things. But at the same time, I totally understand that if you want to direct them to the accessible walkways, it's a good thing. And taking into account your comments, Joe, on just the costs, kind of doing a lot of this extra stuff. It's Yeah, I'm kind of, I'm a little bit on the fence. I can kind of go either
So to
way in
speak.
some ways. Yeah, so to speak, right? I'm on the fence and, but, because in some ways I like the idea that you really direct people by having a fence there. And then you direct them to use the walkways that are there for them. Versus without it, you're gonna have people scaling that.
Councillor McCarron.
Yes, I do agree with Councillor Wilson that directing Councillor, that directing people to the walkway, putting a fence so that people are not scrambling up, I think that's the best solution. I am reluctant to approve, large expenditures when we've already added a little here, a little here, a little here, a little here. I think it's fine the way it is, and if we take this suggestion, I think we're good for now.
I think just in there, just finally, just so I understand what we're giving up, if we put in stairs, we give up one parking spot.
Yeah, at this point, the stairs are one parking
So,
spot per location.
One every set of stairs, one
This
parking.
location, if we're putting in accessible spaces there at the very end, where we thought, I don't think that really will lose it. I think we might be able to fit that in with the accessible, because you have to have a batch mark for opening your car door there, so I think we could possibly do that one, and generally one space.
And when
per-
we put in this, if we put in a stair, we also need a rail. This motion does not. The Councilor Carver's amendment doesn't include the railing, right? Just includes the stairs.
Councillor Carver's amendment,
She does.
Not the amendment, the proposed, the theoretical amendment that hasn't been approved yet.
with this motion, we're still on the
Yeah.
motion. as
No,
it's
but just
right?
conceptually,
Is the rail and no stairs. If we go with stairs, the rail would be unnecessary. So if this motion passes, I'm taking that to mean it's unlikely we'll then approve stairs. If we did, I think we'd have to revisit the design, and I'll talk to you
And
guys about it.
just on Councilor Wilson's motion, so if we approve that, can that work be done before the 4th of August?
The extension of the rail,
And the Peace Garden,
I believe it can, yes.
okay. And, okay, fair enough. So we could get that done before the Premier and the Prime Minister arrive
I
and
mean,
all
I'm
the
still
other
waiting for the
dignitaries
Peace Garden
arrive.
itself, but I'm
We can
pretty
open
confident the Peace Garden
We
will
can
be-
open the trail, and then we can get on with the rest of the summer, and then we'll gather information every day on what the use patterns look like. Fair enough.
I'd like to weigh in on this, because I've stayed
Please.
quiet and I've listened to everybody. I agree with Councillor Wilson's suggestion, and to block that off, there's a close enough walkway there. But I would like us to try and put one set of stairs in the middle, in the middle of that parking lot. Which would be across almost from the church, the Anglican church,
Yeah.
to see how that works. I think it's a good compromise, and I feel putting steps at the end by the Peace Garden is not going to prevent people further down climbing up the bank. So that's where I see the most traffic, is people going up the bank. And if we could try a set of stairs there, I think it's a good compromise for all of us here on, but I see no necessary step needed down by the Peace Garden where there's a fully accessible one. But I think we should try a set of stairs and see how it works. That's my take.
And just procedurally,
Yeah.
if this motion passes, then a separate motion could be made to say, approve one set of stairs to be located in the middle of the Anglican parking lot. So
Yes.
not either or, just one thing and then the next thing, procedurally.
Okay, Councillor Carver.
Just to pick up on the deputy mayor's earlier point about stairs need a railing, it's a handrail for the stairs. A stairway needs a handrail,
Yes.
right, okay. No matter where it is, and if, depending on whether, if people are gonna support that,
Well, we
in
have
the
to,
middle,
Yeah.
if we, I will support Councillor Wilson's motion, if we're gonna have another motion subsequent to that,
Councillor Boone and then Councillor Paul.
despite my distrust
And
of the railing.
just real simple for me, I'm good for the compromise, what you suggested.
Councillor Paul.
Could we amend the motion to approve Councillor Wilson's with the addition of stairs established midway along the.
No,
We'll just make a second,
Second
someone
motion.
can make that
So-
second motion on my behalf, or I can vacate the seat that
I'd
you
be
want.
happy to do it.
Okay,
So stairs in the middle, that's not the staff recommendation, and we give up parking spots. Like that,
one.
we give up, okay, but we also give up a parking spot in the very middle of the parking lot.
Well, you know what?
It's not a full parking lot. The stairs are not a full from here to over there wide. It's a narrow piece walkway. That's all it is. It's a part of a parking lot.
Well,
but
just-
you're carrying a lease on.
yeah, for the, effectively, it will lose one space because the stairs have to be minimum of 6 feet. Minimum of 6 feet, and a parking space being 10, like you're still gonna lose.
Well, we're doing this because the public has deemed it almost necessary to do this.
But not the
So they
taxpayer.
can go without one less parking space. As far as that's the
Yeah.
The
compromise.
traveling public, but they're not paying the bills, right? Like I'm all, so this is a huge investment. This is another $20,000 to facilitate these stairs.
It's arguably not. We've just heard that locally done, that 20,000 is overstated. It should be done less locally.
The question was, would it cost more to have it done outside of the contract? I can't say we're gonna save a bunch, I'm just saying it won't cost more.
Or I would just put up a "Don't walk on the grass" sign and kick the can for a year or two or never. I mean, I wouldn't mind having the Peace Trail, having the Bayway open for a month before and just to like figure out what the usage patterns are once it's in use.
It is in use.
I mean, how much money do we want to spend on on accommodating every whim of the tourist community? I mean, at the expense of someone who lives on Maple Street. I mean, at some point we have to just stop spending money on Edgewater.
Mayor, you might wanna just get a vote on
Yeah,
the motion,
okay.
because we're
We'll
debating
go-
stairs that aren't in the motion.
Yeah, yeah, okay, let's vote on Councillor Wilson's motion. It was seconded by Councillor McCarron, was it?
No.
Deputy Mayor Feeney.
Deputy Mayor Feeney, okay,
Beat you to it.
all right, sorry,
And
all right.
could we have the motion read, please, before we vote?
Sure.
That council approve the accessible walkway across the Peace Garden to the accessible access to the trail and a 2-meter extension of the iron fence to the slope to prevent people from climbing the bank.
Okay, and it was seconded by Councillor Feeney. Okay, all those in favor signify aye. Opposed? You're opposed? Okay, all right. The motion is carried. And Councillor Carver, will you make that motion on my behalf?
Yes, I will. I would move that a set of stairs be installed partway along the St. James parking lot, contiguous with the end of the iron railing. Is that the right location?
Yeah, I mean, it's effectively, you described it as the middle, which would be, I think, maybe like 6 car lengths from the end of the railing. But either or, I guess that's down to the nuance of your motion. It could be the middle, or it could be at the end of the handrail section.
Well, I'll leave that at staff judgment, so that just slightly beyond the end of the railing.
Okay, is there a second for that? Councillor Paulson? Okay, all those in favor signify aye. Opposed? 2, 3, it's a tie.
No.
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 Oh, just a minute, put up in favor
Count yourself.
of 4, okay, okay, opposed, okay, right, all right, the motion has carried. All right,
the VIC scope remains to be debated. And
Okay.
maybe now Councillor Boone can say it's.
Councillor Boone,
I had a question about it because I'm seeing the diagram there that's being proposed to put that crosswalk in. And it was my understanding in the meeting that we had where we had our guest that we were kind of planning not to do that. Or.
Oh, yeah, none of this is in the scope, so.
Yeah.
Right now, there's no crossing, and the only thing shown in that diagram that is existing asphalt for that one accessible space, and then that little green section that's not referenced is some landscaping that's in scope, but nothing else in the schematic, none of this asphalt, not the crossing, none of that is in the design. You're being asked to approve it if
Okay,
you're inclined to approve
but
it.
there's that zebra crosswalk there.
That's the proposed.
That's proposed, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then the pricing is in there too, right? Or the budget for it.
Yeah, so, yeah, they always leave off the RFP itself. So the RFP itself is $12,000. That's in addition to the above crossing scope. So yes, the 39,000 is the crossing without the actual RFP device.
Yeah.
But does include the remainder of the paving of the lot on that side.
Right.
So if you're looking for an option to approve the crosswalk with no paving, I
Yeah,
think you would have to specify by motion, and what that would entail is $20,000, the stuff that is not, give or take, in the, or maybe 15, that is not in relation to the paving in the above from CBCL, plus 12,000. So I think you're talking about 27,000 for the crosswalk by itself,
got it.
Councillor Boone, you can.
with a little landing.
Yeah, and just another question. With the new construction on clear land, it was unclear to me that was there also another proposal out there that a crosswalk would go down there instead? No.
That has been discussed.
I thought that had been discussed somewhere.
And what is referenced in the report is that right now, we put in the curb down around the corner of Cleveland Road.
Yeah,
We will leave sufficient space so that you could put a sidewalk down Cleveland Road. You could put therefore across sidewalk along the curb, so like at the foot of Cleveland Road where the green space is now, and you'll see there's this, the Mohawk sign's gonna go in there. You could put a sidewalk going around that would then be able to connect to the crossing where it is located.
yeah,
And in that, you could also therefore have put the crossing at the foot of Cleveland Road and use the same design to get pedestrians to the VIC. But because we're not currently recommending the sidewalk on Cleveland Road, locating the crossing at that point would entail quite a bit of extra effort without providing any real access benefits to Cleveland Road, because we wouldn't be doing the sidewalk there on the corner. So that's just, I boiled it down to, it makes sense at this point to put the crosswalk at the VIC if we're putting it in at all,
right,
and then use the sidewalk to make sure that that still serves Cleveland Road at a later time.
right.
But it could be switched the other way.
And then just one last question about the costs here. So the proposed costs are to have that crosswalk, to pave the sections on the right-hand side of that diagram. And then the second part of this, the optional part, is the south parking lot paving. So this is all inclusive cost.
Yeah.
This would be paving for both sections.
Yeah, so the maximal option, both of the cited things in green plus the
Yeah.
12,000. So, that's your $83,000 option, kind of, that's everything in, all the paving and the crossing, all in.
Right,
And the minimum for just the crossing is 27,000. So
right.
that's your range of options.
Councillor Paulferman and then Carver.
Okay, well, I agree with the positioning of the crosswalk. It's arguable whether it be better on the south parking side of it because of buses, etc., etc. But the original intent was to make it relatively easy to get to the Vic from the Bayway. So where it's located at the moment seems to make sense to me. From the point of view that it's the only means of accessing the historic burial ground. There is no other means of getting across the road. Safeway to do so. Similarly, of course, there's people leaving the buses to go to the other side, the water side, to take the photographs and so on. So it seems to me there's very little choice here. We just have to have one here. I don't think it's necessary at all to to pave the south parking lot this year. We're talking about saving money. This is one area where we can legitimately save without a great deal of problem. It's been chipped and whatnot. It's adequate for parking. If buses are coming and cars are parking, I don't know how you'd actually lay out that with white lines. It may be better just to leave it as a bit of a free-for-all and deal with it as you can. As to the accessible parking lot, I actually, for once, agree with Councillor Wilson on the point that you can back a car in and reverse it around without going into the road. That was never my point. My point, I did the same thing myself. You can only go in one direction, though, especially if there's a crosswalk there, because you'd otherwise be backing into the exit of a crosswalk. So that problem remains. The other problem is, of course, for any vehicle longer than your average car, it definitely involves backing into the road, because I'm parallel to the road. When I'm doing full lock from the very front end of the parking lot, there might be a foot left. I'm not even sure what happens with the back of the car as I'm backing around. But when I finish up, though, I know that I'm level with the road by about saving about 1 foot. But if I'm in the truck, and quite a few accessible drivers use trucks, they are definitely in the road. There's just no two ways about it. So I don't think this is a safe plan at all. Whatever that means to the parking spots, there's a designator there, I don't know. That would be subject to other drawings and the like, but certainly it would, less parking there would mean greater visibility for our historic burial ground, which is right now being proposed to be hidden behind 6 cars being parked.
And Councillor Feeney. Oh,
I'm sorry,
Oh.
can you go to it?
okay, Councillor Carver, sorry.
Yes, I'm glad that Councillor Boone asked for the clarification around the cost. So we have 26,000 plus RFP if it's only the crosswalk.
26,000 including the RFP,
Including the RFP.
if it's just a
If it's just the crosswalk.
So it'd be that little bit of pavement to connect it so you get a barrier free
Yes.
and the crossing itself.
Onto the ramp, okay. And the 39.5, the 40,000 would include paving on the right side. I'm taking in, trying to consider the concern about costs that have already been raised. I would be happy if we did the crosswalk only, and with the option that we could do the paving at a future date. And I absolutely acknowledge the Councillor Palfreman's concerns about the difficulty of the turn. It's doable, I know, because I've done it. It is doable, but the sight line is so problematic because of the curve in the highway. And the space is very tight. I actually just wrote down here, is it possible, there are signs on highways or roadways saying, caution, trucks turning ahead. Is it possible to have a sign saying, caution, cars turning ahead, or something like that?
If you're asking me as traffic authority, I'd recommend against it because of sign proliferation. We would
Yeah.
need so many of those to consistently apply them
Yeah,
that they would just be everywhere in all
Yeah,
day.
okay, yeah, got it. So I think I could make a move, unless you want to go ahead to somebody else.
Was there, Councillor Feeney had a,
So just a couple thoughts, Mayor. So this isn't the first time we've discussed this topic. And when we spoke at length, at least 2 council meetings about the sidewalk, weighing off a number of considerations and priorities, and this priority didn't make the cut. And we deferred it or didn't support moving forward. I'm unaware of any new information that would put my mind at ease that like this continues to be our #1 priority, especially at these cost points. like it is just quite a bit of money to get people from the Vic, which is, we'll see. Like, we'll see how popular the Vic as an institution will be. Like, I have my doubts whether the Vic will continue to have its current role 5 years from now. And Vics are closing almost everywhere in the province. I'm not sure what it will be when it's no longer a Vic, but the Vic is a very antiquated channel for marketing. And it's debatable whether it's going to have a long life curve or not. I mean, we already had a budget proposal from the chamber saying that they would like the town to take on the cost of staffing the Vic. I mean, so this is a slow moving train, but given the province shutting down, I think 16 Vics across the province this year, I mean, my guess is there'll be another 10 or 12 or 15 closed next year. They're contemplating closing the Vic in Lunenburg. I mean, you have to be aware of how the world's evolving. I'm also, honestly, from an accessibility perspective, I think we all understand why we're revisiting this topic. We did have a letter back from a concerned citizen asking for increased accessibility. We've talked quite a bit already in this meeting about other accessibility features. I'm not sure if the stairs are a net benefit or a net detraction from accessibility, given the parking lot impact, but who knows? And then I guess finally, I think this plan implies that the land on the right of the existing asphalt is going to also be paved.
Well, it's just one of the options that's being
Right.
presented here.
So, and again, like that is the cemetery property. So I'm a little concerned about, paving paradise there, as they say, but and creating a beacon to please park here, when that's not at all like the function of that area. Is really, don't park here is really what unless you're visiting the cemetery, versus park here and stay for a few days and have a bus pull in there. So I'm not enthusiastic about paving that section. Now, when we did our tour, which I thought was really helpful, and Councillor Palferman's behest 2 weeks ago, I think there is a lot of merit in the south parking lot paving and evolution and optimization of that space. If done well with curb and demarc points and paving and so on and so forth. So I'm much more enthusiastic about supporting that particular investment than I am spending another $40,000 on the crosswalk and associated impacts. And don't these numbers sound big? Doesn't this seem like this is $82,000 plus HST? It strikes me that this is a tremendous amount of money to affect this change at this moment, given our deferrals of other important things last year. But anyway, kind of the chase.
Let me see my list. Okay, Councillor Palferman and then Wilson.
Yeah. To me, the purpose of the crosswalk is only partly because of the Vic. More importantly, it's the if we are to have buses parking as they want to do and so on, then people have to cross the road to get to the Bayway, to take the photographs and so on and so forth. On the means of accessing the by foot the historic burial grounds, it's the only way from the Bayway to get by foot to get to the burial ground. So without that, there is no access to it with absent a car. As to the parking on that side, we may not wish to have parking, but it's a clear and obvious fact driving by it every day. There's full of cars parked in there, and always will be during the season. So, paved or not, they're going to be parking there. As to saving money, I don't think it's particularly necessary to pave either at this point. The crosswalk is the issue for reasons stated. So, and no one wants to address any car longer than so far, longer than an average family car getting out of there without backing into a highway. So I maintain that you can't do it.
Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. One question, does the proposal for the walkway, is that a fully accessible to the trail walkway?
The crosswalk?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
And what would be the difference in price if it wasn't? If it was just a crosswalk?
Yeah, I mean, you really can't legally put a crosswalk in that isn't accessible.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, post April 1st of 2026 anyway, now it's, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Okay, then just to state my position, I think we need a crosswalk. I believe it should be. I don't know if there's any indication, I haven't heard any or seen any indication that buses want to use that place to stop or are using it as a place to stop. They may, but I haven't seen it. So my preference would be to not do anything and see what happens in the next 6, 8, 10 months. And my fallback position would be, okay, I'll surrender and put in a crosswalk, but I'm not sure that, I think it should be at the other end of the Vic, not at the cemetery side.
Can I just quickly on that point?
Okay.
So that, the only change with that would be totally fine, but I would suggest that we pave just that strip along the edge so that you can get barrier free onto the entrance of the Vic. It would be a very minimal cost difference. So if you make a motion, whoever makes a motion, just specify where you want it.
Councillor Carr.
Because we have had new information since earlier discussions about the Vic, during which I had always supported the idea of a crosswalk at the Vic. And we have had new information from a citizen resident who advocated for an accessible crosswalk there. I would like to move that we support the installation of an accessible crosswalk at the Vic. Period.
Your seconder, Councillor McCarron, okay?
Just for clarity,
Yes.
approve? Approve. Right.
Sorry, not support, approve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I think the motion would be better if it also included the budget.
Included the,
Included the budget.
We will get a change order back because of the vagaries here. Like, I'll have to come back with a number with a change order. But if I get a motion saying you approve it based on the national budgets as we've discussed here, I'm not gonna be waiting for another council meeting. I can authorize that change order, so I would just send it to you by email.
Well, what's the estimated budget on that accompanies the approval
So
of
I
the
had
motion?
noted it would be about $27,000 for just the crossing. I think if it's at the other end, it would maybe be 30. Like, so we're talking give or take.
Plus the other 12.
No, that's including as well.
So this has no flashing lights?
You know, this would be.
Oh, it does,
on
okay,
everything.
it does have flashing lights, okay. All right. And it's a set.
So, but it is just the crossing and necessary paving to get barrier free to the VIC entrance is all we're talking about.
Okay,
and just to speak to the motion again,
Yeah.
and to Councillor Wilson's point earlier about use, I think that with the visible crosswalk and the flashing the light option, the buses will then use parking on that side more than they are now, because it creates an opportunity for the passengers to cross over to the Bayway
Safely.
Oh, safely, yeah, so it creates an option to accommodate the buses on that side.
okay. Ready?
So do you have a preference? It's not expressed in your motion for which side of the Vic this crossing is on? Did you just
Oh.
configure the buses? Are you speaking to Councilor Wilson's
What is
suggestion?
staff recommendation on this?
I think the engineers had recommended where it is shown, which would be on the same side of the Vic as the accessible parking space. But, you know, they weren't really thinking about it being predominantly thinking of the buses. So I don't see any issue with having it be at the other end, except, like I mentioned, maybe 10 meters of extra paving just along the area there.
The problem is if it is on the left side and it's accessible crosswalk, then people in wheelchairs or with wheeled, whatever, would have to cross over to the right to get to the ramp.
Yeah, so that's why I said we would pave the apron, but they
Oh, I
would
see,
still
pave
have to
the
be
apron,
on there,
right.
yeah, so that 10 meters of extra paved
Yeah.
apron is probably $3,000 to Joe's
I
question.
think I prefer
Stay where it
as the
is.
design that is shown.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to include it in deference to Deputy Mayor's comments about including the costs.
I just don't have that cost, so if you say up to 30,000 and then it's slightly more than that, I, you know, I,
Okay,
at an approximate cost of $30,000, if you want to say that, I'm sure that'd be
Go lower than
fine.
Or not to exceed.
that. Not to exceed.
It just, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think at this point, you're not probably gonna back away if I tell you it's 30,500, so, you know, I'm just. Lots of stuff on camera where we talked about the amounts of money.
Okay, so we have a motion to put in a crosswalk at the VIC. And it's seconded by Councilor Karen. So all those in favor signify aye. Opposed? The motion is carried.
Although we don't have a lot of items, if we're finished this item, can I get just a quick recess? I just need to run to
Sure.
washer. And I know I need to be here to answer questions on the
All
next one.
All right, we will take a small recess and we'll let her turn off our mic and our.
Was that it?
Sorry, I know there's not that many items left.
Yeah, if you just want to turn on your cameras.
Good time for snack, people.
And just, not for the record, so
Oh, sorry, that's me.
Our microphone, and we are back again.
But I managed to leave it on the agenda too.
Oh, sorry, that's me. Okay, regular meeting.
Okay,
Are back.
we have an echo.
Very strong. Okay,
Is everyone muted?
Yeah.
Okay,
No, somebody's
Hello?
not.
Somebody's not muted.
let me check.
Could be
No,
me.
you're off.
Yeah, we're good.
Great. Yeah, we're great.
all right, we're ready to go. I just have to look at my building community strong fund, is that where you are, 7.4? All right, people,
So I'm sure this does come as a bit of a surprise, I suppose, even though it is in relation to a piece of correspondence on the agenda. That's not the primary reason why this report was prepared. It just happens to align with the report. When staff were advised by ACOA of this funding opportunity, we reviewed our capital budget, as we always do, looked at approved projects, looked at what would be likely eligible in our various facilities, and felt that the strongest application would relate to the community sports field. Understanding we have in the past effected some pretty major improvements. I'm happy to take some questions on, any of what's included in here as a strategy or alternatives. But I do think, typically we want to apply for funding like this. So it is a question of, is this the right targeted project? And then what components should we potentially include?
Mhm.
okay. Is there any discussion?
The brief.
Well, it's obviously, sorry.
Oh, Councillor Fulton?
The school parking lot is obviously a in need situation. I'm not sure whether it's the most needed, but it's needed. Just a question, going by memory here, it's not the entire lot because the town owns the far end. Fairmont, does it not?
Yeah, so to the request, I suppose, from the Mahone Bay Center Society, the town owns the entrance from Fairmont into just a little bit past where the track
Yeah.
begins,
Yeah.
between there and the basketball court. What's being proposed in scope for paving here, if you look at the diagram on page 2, is actually the lower parking lot, which is wholly owned by the Mahone Bay Center. And the reasons for that relate to the potential benefits in terms of accessibility to the field area and stormwater management. And obviously the request from the Center Society focuses on their concerns about the lower playground also. But regardless of those concerns, there is a strong rationale from the town to have accessible spaces paved along the rope fence line, which would then provide barrier-free access onto the track, which, we can't really consider to have barrier-free access now because there's no accessible parking dedicated to it. So there's some rationale there. Also, swaling that parking lot would enable us to direct stormwater that currently runs off the parking lot onto the track and onto the field, away from those things, which, does present a maintenance challenge, especially, if we ever were to talk about winter maintenance.
So we couldn't include the rest of the parking lot on the town piece?
Could do, it's just, it would be more cost than.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I think as far as the COA goes, like, there's no reason, it's up to $1 million to suggest that it wouldn't be in scope, but it's only 50% matching. So that, the center hasn't expressed and the town does not currently have the budget allocation for our share of the payment.
Yes.
Councillor Wilson?
Oh, no, I didn't hear that.
Oh, Councillor Carter?
Oh, thank you. And what is the time frame, the time limit, the deadline?
It's open until it's been funded, but they have indicated strongly the time is of the essence, and some applications have certainly been received from our area. So I would say, we could bat this back and forth a little bit, but I would not take too long in reaching a decision. The sooner we get it in, the more likely it is we'll be able to receive more money.
Oh, seemed like first come, first served.
It is first come, first served, yeah, and it's been open for a couple of weeks, so this was the quickest I
Okay.
could get it.
As a second question, Mayor?
Yes, sure.
What is the irrigation issue, the water issue there?
Yeah, so the irrigation is
Stormwater.
actually, that's a totally separate
Yeah,
thing.
no, I meant the
Okay.
stormwater.
So the stormwater is a long-standing challenge where the lower parking lot grades towards the track.
Right.
And it currently sheds a lot of water that sits on the track and along the edge by the bleachers. And that's been an issue that's been ongoing. But there's really no way to resolve it unless the parking lot is paved and then we can swale it. And
Right.
there's a proposal for a rain garden that it would kind of go into. And the second rain garden at the other end of the basketball court is maybe less necessary, but it also addresses like a known wet spot that collects there. So, yeah, you could half the cost of the rain gardens if you only went with the one intended to serve the parking lot, which is the more significant one.
Okay, Counselor Boone, then Wilson, then Palfreyman.
So I just wanted to get clarification on the proposed, so you're looking at a proposal of $286,000 or 84 something, or 86?
Well, I described that as the maximum, and then Norman's letter asks for another $18,000 of paving, and that's even in addition to what Councillor Palfreyman suggested. But my suggested maximum was the $284,000.
And then what ACOA would provide would be half of that.
Yeah.
Up to half of that.
And they do say they can take applications up to $1 million, so that would be funding $500,000. But it has been expressed to me that is more than would be available to us in our area because Lunenburg County is busy. We're getting a lot of applications.
And then just to clarify, and then you've got this breakdown of sources of funding. So the town would contribute 36.
Well, 36 is what we've already got in our budget in relation to these items. So I presume we would contribute 36.
Okay.
There's still a shortfall of 77,000 that between the three groups would have to be addressed. And, I don't think either of the other two groups, as is noted here, have much means to close that gap.
Sure.
Okay, Counselor Wilson, you're next.
Yeah, that's sort of my question. I'm not quite sure I understand the timing, so the application needs to go in right now. The spending would probably not happen until next year, or would it be this fall?
My expectation is that the time it would take to turn this around, it would be about 6 weeks. So if we apply this month, we would have 2 or 3 months worth of time in which some work could be affected this fall. I think that the irrigation system would get done right away in order to be done before next spring and be underground and be out of the way. Because the funding for that has already been secured from the province, that they would probably rather not extend that funding. But we certainly we wouldn't get everything done this fall unless we really pushed for it, in which case we might be able to.
Well, yeah, I'm, as you know, categorically opposed to the notion of irrigation on the field for obvious reasons, obvious to me at least. But I'm wondering about the 77 grand. I guess if we could extricate, if we agreed to extricate the irrigation piece, that would get us partway to that number. But would it be a way to fit it into next year's budget and pay for it that way, or?
So the irrigation thing is actually fully funded, so it's just in our interest to allow it to be in here unless we're going to tell them no,
Oh, okay.
because they've gotten the provincial funding that we provided a letter of support
So
for.
we don't do it.
So I presume that
We're not gonna give you the water if you need it.
they already know that if the water were shut off because we had rationing, then they wouldn't be able to use it. So I think to that question, could the funds flow over 2 fiscal years, allowing them to stretch our contribution to 2 fiscal years? Yes, I think would be the simple answer to that.
Okay, good.
Which would also leave the center time to contemplate possibly contributing more funding. My answer from them was we don't have approval at this time. We could look at it, but we need to have time to consider.
Counselor Palfreyman.
So I'm not understanding something here. The $40,000 irrigation system has been provincially funded. So why is it included in the total of the ACOA application?
This is just how you get money. So basically when you describe a project, you could describe it as just the irrigation system, and you could say, well, the irrigation system is funded by the province and MBU. Or you could say, look, we got this big project that includes the irrigation system, and the province has already signed on to finance $27,000. the fact that the provincial funding is in relation to a system doesn't mean it's not available to leverage ACOA money. So it's just leveraging, this is how you would get more money.
But why wouldn't that 40,000 be then included in the province funding confirmed?
Well, 26,500 is the provincial share of the irrigation, and the MBU contribution was 34,600. That does acknowledge there's presented as a shortfall here. That's so that ACOA could pick it up. Otherwise, MBU would find presumably other donors to pick it up.
So we're stuck because we have bleachers approved in the 26-27 budget, but the one thing they want to do is the paving.
I can't say what council would want to do.
No,
I think the shade structure for the bleachers are exceptionally necessary. I mean, I don't want to speak too much as a parent and user,
Yeah.
but when you see people down there on the hot days throughout the summer, the fact that we plan to have shades over the bleachers and they're not there is quite, it's in a very big shortcoming to the bleachers as they stand.
I'm not suggesting it's not, it's just that the top of the list is the paving request. And yes, all the other expenses are committed or needed or whatever, which, and we've got the shortfall of about the equivalent of the paving.
Yes, and because we don't have an established budget for paving. So if council were saying this paving needs to happen and we know we don't have an allocation for it, that would be the thing where you're really being asked, are you willing to put in money that you hadn't really budgeted on? Like more than anything else here, that's the big ask to you, I think, in this project is there was no funds allocated for that. The other systems and things we were somewhat working towards already. The paving was not otherwise on the agenda. But it has been requested, and there is a bit of precedent from a recent paving.
Councillor Carver?
A very important part of the rationale is the accessibility feature, to which we are committed, both morally and legally, for new projects. I mean, though this isn't a new project,
And I think we
In a
could
way it
cost
is.
the accessible paving strip at about $20,000. So, like to your point, if we were going to say how much of the paving is really on the towns to benefit the town, it's to serve the town's facility, $20,000 would probably get you that section.
the
Now-
accessibility
Yeah.
to the trail.
Now, we don't own it, so for Mahone Bay United, for Mahone Bay Center rather, to give us permission to have those spaces turned over to accessible parking, I think is seen on their part as a bit of the trade-off associated with the paving, because they will gain, as you always do with a paved lot, enough spaces to offset the loss of some dedicated accessible spaces. So, like, I think from their end, the town may not gain the benefit from a lot of the paving because it is their property, but we would certainly have a bit of quid pro quo in paving and then getting our accessible spaces that they otherwise don't have to permit us to have.
Councillor Alderman?
A bit of a conundrum in a way, because we've just gone through paving of church parking lots, primarily for non-residents. And here we're being asked to pave, and also it could be used for public parking, parking that is used by residents and area people. It's interesting juxtaposition of priorities.
Councillor McCarron?
Yes, looking at this, I'm all in favor of taking money that is on the table. And I think that looking at the list of what this would go for, most of it we've already agreed are things that we'd like to see happen. So having a shortfall of 77,000, if we can spread that, this budget, next year's budget, looks like a good deal to me.
Oh, Councillor Feeney?
So I thought Norman's letter was timely, kind of, I'm still, I have a hard time struggling with an $82,000 sunscreen. Like the materiality of that sunscreen for the relativity of the benefit. I mean, I think aspirationally, sure, it'd be great to have it. I wonder about how that budget for that item is relative to the sunscreen we're putting down by the community washrooms. It looks beautiful from what I saw when I drove by yesterday.
So I can speak to that. So we've tried a lot of options with this, because Jonathan and I, our first impression is, wow, these things are incredibly expensive.
Yeah, fair
So
enough.
like we have the shade sails, which are poles with sails down at the bandstand.
Mhm.
We have a custom built wooden structure going in by the washrooms.
Looks great.
And then this is a sort of a prefabricated structure, kind of distinct from both of those, as usually is in a sporting environment. These ones that are being proposed for the bleachers are bigger than either of those. So part of the challenge is the scale. And just to get that span of 30 feet, you need a different kind of structure, because it's 30 feet is a long span.
Mhm.
But we did look at all three options. So the wooden structure is going to be about twice as much as what we are looking at here, which is, it's crazy, but that is about what it would be.
Mhm.
And the shade sails, you really would only be able to get, you'd have to put a post in the middle, which somewhat limits the accessibility, and then you'd be able to get about half the screening, and ultimately it's going to cost almost as much. And Jonathan doesn't care for maintenance on the shade sails already. We don't know that we'll even get, 8 years out of each set of sails, because they're sagging and they're, so I think this is the lowest cost option,
Mhm.
to be honest, other than waiting 20 years for those trees to be tall enough, which in the long run, these structures would be obsoleted within their life if they last for their useful life. We take them out 15 years from now, then there would be trees that would be providing shade. So I think in that sense, probably when these things are run their course, we would not replace them, and we'll have trees.
So Mayor, I think like what's uncomfortable about this approach is it's so incremental. Like it's not asset management. I mean, it's outside of the budget process. Like we go through 16 hours of public meetings and we fight over every nickel, every dime, every priority. We spend 2 hours going through the grants, the process. And yet today alone, we've spent a huge amount of money that's unbudgeted. This is another tranche of unbudgeted funds. I just think that, I think that if we make this investment, I think we need some consensus about the Jubilee. Like this is inextricably linked to what we're doing with Tiny Talk Playground in Jubilee. Like I can't imagine we're going to continue to spend this amount of money on that particular facility and not consolidate the playground here. Like when you've got the basketball court and you've got the soccer field and you've got the community track and you've got shading and you've got all the other things up here, it's kind of illogical to have another asset somewhere else in town. So I think if we approve this today, we are saying no to the playground upgrade this year. I think that's how you solve for the budget delta, right?
Well, that is referenced in the
Fair
report.
enough.
We failed to get the funding on the
So-
playground upgrade. And then it leaves the playground in play for the bigger Jubilee moving pieces piece, because it was referenced at one point. Why not, for example, relocate the pool down to where Tiny Tots is? Those type of things would be more in play at that point. And we might want to consider, just in this location, not putting the proposed rain garden in at the end on the far end. If we were ever going to put a couple of play structures in at the field, just if that's a thought, and then they'd be there for co-location of benefits, parking and everything. That end of the basketball court is kind of our only free space where you could have a small playground. So that might be something to contemplate even within this application. It's just like looking at that as a possible little bit of playground, because a couple of play structures would be relatively equivalent to what we've got, much more spread out at Tiny Tots.
So like with eyes wide open, I think if we approve this motion today, of which, I would support moving it along and seeing what we get as far as the budget process, as the grant process. But I think we're also deferring the Tiny Top Playground expenditure. I think that's part
what I
of.
noted in here is that within operating budgets, that we can do that small improvement to the play structure where it was requested that we switch from having ramps or sort of ladders to having stairs.
Mhm.
Like that's a small thing. Jonathan can take care of it. And there were a couple of small maintenance things within the playground, so we won't be leaving, if we don't do the project, we won't be leaving any like safety hazards or anything in the playground. We just won't be making any of the proactive upgrades that we had hoped to make.
If we had the school advisory group came to us and asked us for an $82,000 grant towards the new playground upgrade at the Mahone Bay School. You know, that's the kind of materiality I was thinking, like 82 from the town in the context of 250 overall. Like, so we are making a real big allocation of funds to the screening, of which won't be used for 10 months of the year, really. I mean, no one needs the screening in January or February or March, but I mean, the project is it is shovel ready, and I guess the core element is this. You can't take it all. We can't pick and choose. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
think we
pick
could
and
take out
choose
one of
what
the main
elements.
ones. I think you could take out one of the shade structures, but then you would just have to commit to doing it later. And they've only gone up by 25% in the 4 years since we've had them on our list.
Yeah.
What is their life expectancy? You might have
I would
said
say 15 years.
15.
is the same.
in time for the trees. to grow.
That's the
Are the
thought.
trees in the right direction in relation to the sun?
Good.
Yeah.
15 years, okay.
And you will probably get longer out of it, as we often do.
And
but,
what is the top made of? Is it hard or is it canvas?
I don't think it's canvas. Just a second.
And do they stay year round? Like, Snow?
Maybe it is canvas. I don't have an answer to that question.
I think as long as we remember next May that eventually we have to spend some money for the folks that are under 10 years old in the town. I mean, I think we need to be somewhat cognizant that paving's great, but you know, a playground is worthwhile as well, and it's hard to do everything.
have many children.
Councilor Booth.
I was just gonna say, the challenge with government funding is like the carrot and the stick, right? They're gonna pay a bunch of stuff towards what you're doing, but then you gotta say, now we gotta spend a whole bunch
Yeah,
of money too, right?
Yeah.
So,
and it never comes in the right sequence, does it? You have to
Right.
take it when it's offered.
yeah,
The top thing is canvas.
Councilor Wilson.
Well, once again, this is a situation where we're chasing free money.
Yeah.
And spending it, I don't think unwisely, but when you look at how this money is allocated, in effect, the town is being asked to pay for the paving of Mulvey Center Park lot, period. And I would suggest with speed bumps, because that's gonna become a thoroughfare. But I caution us all to be careful. This whole thing of Jubilee 2.0, which we're kind of starting to nibble at the edges of now, is gonna be really important to how we sort all this stuff out, because we can talk about putting stuff in the basketball corridors and et cetera, et cetera. But remember, Mahone Bay United want to put in a clubhouse, and the clubhouse really can't go at the other end of the field because there's no services. So it would need to come to the school end of the field, and the field be moved into the recently rezoned piece. So it's a very complicated thing that we have to come to grips with over the next 12 or so months.
And why, is there, do they have a plan B? Like, can the paving not be done in different years and in sections or whatever, like we do some of our roads around here, you know, I mean,
It's just that we're getting money from the co-op.
yeah,
Yeah, and this only represents doing it in sections anyway. This is still way out of it.
yeah.
Pardon me, Dylan, can you just clarify that? What do you mean by we're only doing half? What do you mean
Well,
by
so
half
the
of it?
proposal here is the lower parking lot. This doesn't include paving the upper parking.
Oh, yeah,
But so if you look on page 2, there's a
Sorry, page-
highlighted in red
the red paving.
Yeah. So it would include the upper parking lot.
It
And that's
it would
partially
not.
just, it would not include the upper parking lot. That's partially just the acknowledgement that all of the issues relate to the lower parking lot, and we're talking about a certain amount of costs here. But also there is some additional detail to Councillor Wilson's point that I could reference in closed session, but I can't comment on right this sec. So if you really wanted to defer this to after the closed session, I could provide a little bit of additional.
Dylan, can you just clarify, what do you mean by lower parking lot versus upper parking lot, looking at the photo which part is getting paved?
So do you see the red paving label at the top on page 2 of the document?
The red paving,
At the
The
front.
red outline.
the red outline, yeah,
At the front.
at the front, at the side of the school.
So that outline in
Yeah.
red shows the extent of the pavement that's being recommended. It goes around.
Okay. It's just the back end to Fairmont is not,
Yeah, So when I say upper lot, you
Upper
could say
lot.
School Street half, or you could say the Fairmont. Street
Okay,
half.
fair enough. Now we're talking.
There's an elevation difference.
Okay,
between
well,
the two.
no, I mean, I was thinking it was the opposite, or the other way around.
Oh,
We're gonna
okay.
pave the Fairmont piece, but not pave the
No,
School
no.
Street piece. The other way around. Okay, well, this is a good win then.
And I wasn't included in this cost, at least noted in the report, the repaving of the turning loop, because it is paved, so that's on School Street. But there was a request to add it, and I think I speculated it's about $20,000 more. That was in Norman's letter, I just didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate that, so I just.
Say that, oh, I have my hand up, but I
The
didn't hear what.
paving didn't include repaving the already paved School Street entrance from the turning loop where there already is pavement. But Norman did ask in the letter,
I see.
that that be redone. So that would be an additional maybe $20,000. My suggestion would be that the town at least go back and say, relative to that, can NBC come up with some money? Because, that's already paved, so but it's not a great condition.
Yeah.
Councillor Carver and then Boo?
I'm just trying to pick up on the themes about the comparisons that have been made to other areas where we have shared arrangements. This isn't a shared arrangement, that parking area, at all.
It isn't. Now,
No,
in this
there's no-
report,
there's no-
I do note that the Center Society has offered to lease this lot to the town to
Ah.
be signed public and to be, but that's our option, because then we'd also potentially get involved with maintenance of it. So, it's what we want. Do we just want them to say, you have permission to have these accessible spaces, or do we want them to lease us the whole parking lot? I'm not sure it's desirable, but it's something that can be discussed in the context of our agreement renewal, which is how it's referenced in this.
It's just,
It's tricky because
Mhm.
essentially they're asking us to pave their property.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we also did just do that with Trinity,
Yeah.
so I do
Well-
believe the community understands there's a
I see.
precedent.
But-
no, Norman specifically says that in his note. So he's no fool.
I mean, I would like to support it, but certainly there are financial
Yeah.
challenges, but.
I think that it's important for us to clearly delineate the ownership of the property and the fact that essentially we're making a grant. Like, you need to carve out a grant to NBC in the deal structure, Dylan, so that it's not, we're making a donation to the Mahone Bay Center. They're going to use it to do the paving on their property. And anyway, I'm sure you can figure
Yeah,
out.
I think it has to not be phrased that way for a COA, but there could be another presentation of it.
But I don't think we want to sign up for being in charge of snow removal and those things unless that was through some other global.
Councillor Boo?
I'm just curious, and I'm just trying to think. I see a lot of this stuff that we make decisions on, and it's all about us spending money, right? And I see our tax revenues. That's that's how we generally make our income stream. That's our primary income streams. Are there any creative things that we could do to generate income from any of this work that we're doing? And it's not a asking for anything specific right now, but are there other things that we could do that would potentially bring in income from a project like this? And I don't know, it might be a silly question, but
No,
I don't have anything off the top of my head, but this is a discussion that MBU is always provoking. They
Yeah.
love to find more revenue streams for the field and all of the maintenance costs.
Yeah.
the town in general has considered and come to no conclusion or plan
yeah,
on charging for parking in town. And
I
that's a
see.
huge revenue stream, as a matter of fact.
yeah, things like that. Yeah, I want to just kind of take it away as some thoughts, because that's what I'm thinking as we go through things. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, it's significant cost for a lot of these things, and figuring out ways, how does the town recoup some of that money, especially even with Edgewater, as we are, hopefully it's seeing a increase in tourist traffic, increase in flow. Kind of obviously businesses, or hopefully businesses, will really prosper from it. But at the same time, it's potentially what could we do? And I'm not.
Well, the washrooms and the parking obviously
Yeah.
are really low hanging fruit, but as we discussed, we sort of said in the past that we weren't looking to monetize them, but.
There's a risk to it too, sure.
So cutting to the chase, if we defer Tiny Tot, we're $30,000 short this year. And we don't necessarily have line of sight to where we'll come, but we also don't know what the final grant application will be. So why don't we apply and we'll see where it goes. And sometime between now and the time we get our favorable response, we'll figure out how we're going to close the $30,000 gap. And I guess we owe it to ourselves to have a more comprehensive conversation about the playground. But it's really going to be a 2027 investment.
I really think we need to talk about the contribution though from the other partners on the paving too. You know, splitting it 3 ways, that's not confirmed and.
No,
It
and I think
seems like-
that we just essentially say we gotta figure it out before we get a yes or no answer, or before we spend the money.
Yeah,
Well,
I think, you know, this is a big ask, but for them to just assume that we'll pave it all. I think they come to it as a request to us, we didn't come to them, right? And so I think there needs to be a willingness on their parts to contribute towards that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, it's a really positive working relationship
Sure.
that we have with them, and we want to build on that and keep that positive relationship. I mean, it benefits everybody in the community,
Yeah.
not just the center. It's
Well, and I really like to see the Abriel room is the only accessible place in that whole building, and it would be nice to see that paved. That they have a pad, you know, a real pad for accessible parking and whatnot, because it's in the winter time, it's pretty messy for anyone to use, but it's the only place that has ground level entrance into that building that you can go to an event. I mean, the seniors use it now on Thursdays for an event.
And
but-
technically, to have accessible washrooms for our field, you have to have accessible from the track over to the Averill room.
Yeah,
And then you could open the whole thing up and have accessible washrooms available to the field events as well.
There's the food bank there too.
yes,
Yeah.
But I think notable in its absence, and the sources of funding is Wilmer Center.
Mhm.
And I think what Dylan referenced earlier, which is the notion of doing the circular driveway for a cost of $20,000 and saying, we'll do it, but you're gonna pay for it, is a reasonable solution. And other than that, I think the financial package looks pretty decent. I mean, we're getting 143,000 and so from a co-op. We're getting reasonable amounts from the province and et cetera, et cetera. And our only real problem is we're $30,000 out of pocket in terms of the budget, which is really a technicality that's pretty easy to solve. So with that, if you don't mind, I'd like to make the motion that council directs staff to submit an application to the Old Community Strong Fund -- local impact stream for improvements in relation to the community sports field.
I'll second it.
Seconded by, moved by Wilson and seconded by Carver.
Mhm.
Okay. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Okay. Go to that. That ends our staff report. Boy, that must be a record.
It was only a couple, but.
Lots on the go.
Just I want to make my notes. Okay, item 8, council items, there were none to my knowledge. No, okay. And moving on to committee reports, we will move to Councillor Carver. This is your committee. Did you want to speak?
Yes, but, so there is, draft minutes from the July 2nd meeting of the Climate and Environment Committee. There's only one motion highlighted, but there are actually 2 there.
Okay.
The second one, which is not highlighted, said that the committee recommend that the council not give second reading to the proposed housekeeping amendments to remove the current language regarding tree retention until a standalone tree retention something is in force. So that was the recommendation, but it's kind of moot at this point, given the.
It was just not highlighted because it's in the negative, so it's not really
Oh,
a
because-
motion so
right,
much as
right,
context.
right,
on council's.
okay. Right. So, but the main motion is that, what happened to the nature-based solutions policy? Where did it go?
So I had noted it was left off the agenda by accident, and I thought Claire said she had added it back into the agenda.
I've never
but
been able to
Now
find
I'm
it.
just looking and seeing it doesn't seem to be back on
It's-
the agenda, so.
It is
Sorry.
right here. It's 9A. 9.1 is climate and then 9A is nature-based solutions.
In the versions that I found, I searched for it after
Oh.
Claire's message and I never found it, so.
It's not on my,
I wonder what happened. So, I mean,
Okay.
if there's any level of discomfort, I imagine everybody would be fine with it going on the next meeting agenda, and my apologies. in Kelly's absence, I didn't close the loop on that.
Okay, so what we do have in front of us is a recommendation from the Climate and Environment Advisory Committee. And I will so move that council direct staff to develop a draft tree retention bylaw.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second the motion, Mayor.
Okay.
I mean, I think that just speaking to the motion, I think, you know, my expectation is that this is gonna flawlessly be implemented is low, but I do think there's some virtue in having the conversation with the community, letting everyone weigh in with the various topics. I think, I do wonder about the motion of directing staff versus referring the development of a tree draft retention bylaw to the committee. It seems like the committee as a working group that could provide some guidance would be helpful here. And I'm a little reticent to burden staff with taking on the heavy water of carrying a contentious tree retention bylaw by themselves, knowing that, you know, the committee's done some great work in the past and has access to staff and the rest of the committee's input. So like, I wonder if we want to hand this challenge over to staff entirely, or we're better off availing ourselves of the committee as a whole to help develop the policy.
Okay, McCarron?
I concur. I think I made that point earlier, that there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge on that committee, and it does have public input, and they could broaden that, I suppose, but I would rather see the committee bring us something robust that they've developed than to ask staff.
And would it be all sides of the conversation in that bylaw? Will it be considering that's what concerns me, is the use of private property.
Well, I think if I could say, I think that's why it would be difficult to refer it straight to staff, because at this point, we don't know whether council has a comfort level on certain types of approaches. So in that
But
sense,
does the
having,
committee also have?
well, if the committee's not going to
comfortable-
come back with it, you're gonna get what the committee thinks should be the right approach to it. I think you would know that, that's what you should expect.
But we still will be able to have the benefit of availing of the committee's wisdom, and then we can move it along to the policy and planning discussion for further review.
And potentially to a
And-
public process.
And then we will engage whether it's gonna go any further or not, based on, but at least we kind of get it kick-started, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, hope springs eternal, but I don't know. So,
Well,
Councilor Carver, what are your thoughts on referring the item to the committee versus to staff?
I would rather see it as being a combination. I mean, it could be staff with, in collaboration with the Climate and Environment Committee.
Fair enough.
Um,
Counselor
Would it
Wilson?
be reasonable to assume that somebody, by staff, you mean Lauren?
I think of it staff is gonna be Eric and Lauren. I mean, Eric is always working on all the policies and
Yeah.
bylaws, but Lauren maybe the subject matter.
That would be,
Person.
that's a side.
I would just say if anything would be not a great direction from my perspective, it would be to ask staff to develop it with the committee. I think one of the parties should be in the driver's seat, just given the nature of this committee. I do not really feel that would be doing staff any favors to say staff develop it with the committee. If the committee is going to be engaged, the committee should be the ones to decide what draft is advanced to council, I think.
And a draft. We're talking about
Yeah,
a
yeah,
draft
draft.
policy, not a policy. Thank you.
So staff could support the committee, and certainly, or staff could develop a draft and bring it forward, and the council could send it to the committee, but I just think it's difficult to say staff and the committee when the committee will want final say if they're involved.
I think council should have the final.
Well, I just want a draft.
Oh,
to be advanced to
oh,
council.
okay.
Just between staff and the committee, who has the final say on the draft that comes to council. I think if it's the committee, they should do it by motion, and they're the ones bringing it forward.
So as the mover, original mover of the motion that came from, the recommendation that came from the committee, what is being recommended as more, a more reasonable approach?
A
Well,
draft,
it basically.
Wait, I'm asking either the mayor or the CAO.
a draft.
A
Not a
draft, it will
policy.
always be a
Okay,
draft, of
okay.
course.
Okay,
So from my perspective, I'm not saying it's a better approach. I'm just saying if staff are directed to develop a draft, staff can bring a draft to council, council can refer it to climate, environmental, or policy strategy, wherever you wish. If instead the committees, the climate and environment is directed to develop a draft, staff can support them, but they would by motion, when they feel the draft is ready, send it through for council's consideration. As opposed to staff putting it in front of council, council referring to the committee as an existing draft.
I see.
So those are the two options. The motion as it stands has staff bring it to council, at which point council could then, if they were going to engage with their input. Which I believe reflects the committee's preference, or at least the preference of the mover of this motion. I don't think he was looking to draft it. I think he was looking to see council send the draft to them that staff have developed, and that's why he phrased it that way.
So so the motion that I made was that council direct staff to develop a draft tree retention bylaw. Should I add something to that? Just leave it?
Just the understanding is staff would then bring it to council, who could then refer it to policy strategy or climate environment or engage the public or whatever. We have a draft. We have a starting.
I'll stick with what the committee recommended.
okay, Councilor Bruin, you had,
I think that like, when I heard Joe's comment about, yeah, just put this back to the Climate Advisory Committee, and I'm on that committee too. And so I also know Lauren's there leading that committee. I think in some ways that it kind of clouds the boundaries a little bit. I think that it actually might be better to just kind of put it through to staff to take that responsibility. But they can, they can bring it to the Climate Advisory Committee for input as well. I think we're kind of cutting hairs a little bit. I think it would be beneficial, as Councillor Carver says, to take it to staff and let them kind of give us a draft, something like that. Simple.
Councillor Feeney and then Carver?
So I think what we have to be aware of is that the report from staff may not at all align with the opinions of the committee, and is likely to not align at all with the opinions of the committee, which is a recurring theme here. So what I'm trying to entice is some kind of an efficient process where all of the views of the committee can be fully articulated in a draft, so that we can deliberate on that view. Because having staff come up with a draft bylaw, when the staff may come back and say we don't think there should be any bylaw. So this is really around the efficiency of the process, knowing that if it was easy, we would have already had this bylaw. Like, there's a reason this has taken 15 years, is because it's really hard. And so the expectation that staff's going to take on that burden all by themselves, I think that's a poor use of staff's time to do that. But anyway, we can get on to the motion.
Anybody else? Have a thought? Council Paulman?
I'd say much the same as councillor Feeney. Staff and council have had many, many years of this. Happily, I wasn't involved in it all. But it seems to me, if the committee feels so strongly that something should be in place, then let the committee come up with it.
So, do you want to change your motion again, Councillor, or do you want to vote on what you've made?
Well, not particularly. We've already had one go at the committee bringing a draft policy to council, and that process seemed to be problematic, and that it was a policy was being proposed by council proposed by committee rather than by council. So I'm bringing the motion that was proposed by the Climate and Environment Committee, that council directs staff to develop a draft tree retention bylaw, and there are samples available. And I believe that the Communities in Bloom judges in 2024 highly recommended that we develop a tree bylaw. And I believe it was Oakville is one that they said was a good sample. So, I mean, staff are not going to be starting from scratch and making it up. There are some decent ones in existence. And I'm sure that the deputy CAO is adept at finding them. So I assume that at some point there would be, maybe it's a false assumption, assume that staff at some point would put the question to the committee, or I could as chair.
I'm just gonna say again, that my understanding of this motion is that we'll bring a draft to council, who can then refer it to the committee if they so choose.
Okay.
That's that would bring
A
it.
draft, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Councillor, so is that you made the motion already, right? And we
Yeah,
seconded.
It's been
So
seconded. Yeah.
Councillor Boone and then McCara.
Since you and I, Councillor Carver and I sit on that committee, if it were directed to the committee, we can also help, kind of navigate that process in terms of a little bit of what council's looking for. So, and because there's staff members within that committee, to me, it kind of like would solve all those problems potentially. Like we can navigate what council's looking for in some ways as the climate committee's putting together their proposal. So I could vote on either side of this, because to me it's a bit of a moot point in terms of how it gets done. But it's just the question of there's so much overlap. The committee has staff, council members are on that committee, and then the climate committee, if directed, and then the climate committee are very passionate. Let's just say that. They're a very passionate committee and they have opinions and ideas. So in my view, let's guide that process and take advantage of the staff that are on that committee, the council that's on that committee, and the committee members themselves.
Okay, Councillor McCara.
Well, I'm just wondering what kind of time frame we're looking at. It feels like we just keep expecting staff to report on this and report on that and give us this and give us that. And I know staff is stretched. So a timeline, and also isn't Lauren working on a forest management plan? And maybe we want to hold off on any kind of draft bylaw around trees until we have that forest management.
Councillor Carver.
Yes, there's nothing to say that though, and I agree, absolutely, those should be absolutely integrated, they should be reflected to it. And there's nothing to say that those conversations can't happen. I mean, we're not forcing a timeline on this. The urban forest management plan is virtually, it's very close to its final product. So yes, of course, that would have to be factored into consideration and somehow cross-referenced.
Okay, CEO,
And the urban forest management plan draft is likely to include suggestions for actions going forward that would, support the implementation of that plan. Amongst them being the implementation of a tree retention bylaw. So I think the goals of the urban forest management plan would be served by whatever tree retention bylaw were to come forward. I think there's good synergy there.
So Mayor, just finally, like, I think if council's willing to take up the challenge of inevitably having a vote sometime next year, probably on a tree preservation or protection bylaw, that sounds like good news to me. I think we kick this around. I think I support the motion based on the conversation now. I think it's more likely that the committee will not necessarily agree with the staff report, but we'll deal with that when the staff report comes. But basically, by taking this approach, the committee is really going to be in the back seat versus in the front seat. And I would have preferred to have the committee in the front seat driving this versus the committee in the back seat, commenting on staff's view of the world. But I will support the motion, and if we do have a vote, whenever you'd like to have the vote, we can do that too.
well, we have the right on the table, so we can go ahead and do the vote now. Are you ready? Okay, all those in favor of sending it to staff? Or, so it's going to staff?
Yeah, just as
Yeah.
council directs staff to develop a draft tree retention bylaw.
Yes, okay. All those in favor signify aye.
Are you, if you're hand up or down?
It was down.
Okay, so if you ask the question again, please.
All those in favor signify aye. Opposed? The motion is defeated. So we are moving on. Anything else to report from the Environment and Climate Committee?
Your worship, go ahead.
Yes.
A couple of questions as we move further down the list, into the update section. I'm a little surprised that the climate committee is working on procurement software, and I'm wondering why that's the case. And I'm wondering what the coastal planning support program is that has Uplands Consulting doing some work, and I'm not sure. Is that something that council is aware of? Because my memory doesn't help me at all.
I can speak to both things, although very only partially to the demo. So I wasn't really aware of what the demo consisted of, whether that was really specifically relevant to the mandate of the committee. I would say on receiving the presentation that it isn't really specifically relevant to the mandate of that committee. However, it's an interesting and useful tool to support local procurement. And until it was being demoed, I didn't know what it was. So I think that is just something that a member of the committee was working on and wanted to bring up. As far as the coastal planning support program, yes, so that was originally recommended from asset management. This is the provincial program to facilitate engagement with people who are owners of properties along the shoreline on Main Street and the Ernst Brook tidal area, to talk about, the future adaptation of those properties to rising sea levels as a sort of follow on from Edgewater and the future shoreline areas. So the asset management committee recommended the council apply. We have received approval, and there's a limited number of firms to engage. Upland was the firm that we picked off that list, and we reviewed a scope with asset management committee at their last meeting, and now we're proceeding with that. So it was mostly just being put off the radar of the Climate and Environment Committee at their request, so they would know, okay, well, so what's happening with this as it relates to climate adaptation. But ultimately, the committee is not in the driver's seat on this project. They're just interested parties.
Oh, it's for their information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the committee members discussed opportunities to support this engagement. So that they'd like to be involved, they'd like to support it.
And just to say that the demo software was just more informational. Nothing that was on the table for you or anybody to make.
No, yeah, it was interesting. I think it would have been as interesting to any audience to that committee, what I mean?
did Lauren find anything interesting in it that, as our environment staffer?
Procurement demo?
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's just, going forward, when Lauren does procurement, if this tool is developed to provide us with more perspective on who can provide a service locally, we will notify local potential bidders. So like essentially, it's just helping you to know there might be more companies in your immediate area that would offer a particular service or good. And so you could use this tool. It's only in Cape Breton right now. You could use this tool to be more aware of whom you could then send a message saying, we've just posted a procurement opportunity that you might be interested in. Because the larger companies tend to have people who are always monitoring those sites, whereas the smaller companies often will miss those opportunities. So it's more about like proactively identifying potential suppliers in the immediate area and then making them aware of opportunities. So I think we would use the tool to do that if it were available, but not specific to climate environment. It's any procurement activities.
and so how,
And it's this program that's going on to encourage more local procurement for the sake of the local economy. Really, the environment is a side beneficiary because you're not shipping stuff around, but it's like more of a local economy effort.
so how would that go with the MJSV procurement? Would it interfere with any of that work, or is
No, I
that
think it
something
just
we
supports
could
that work.
support?
I think the real question is, are we going to create any clause favoring local procurement through the efforts to redo all of our procurement policies that were currently ongoing? So right now, none of our procurement policies, to my knowledge, do provide any favoritism to local procurement, nor do we define local procurement. So there is an opportunity to provide that policy back up. But regardless, we could still find and encourage local suppliers to compete, even if they're not competing with any like weighted playing field, they're just competing. Often, like we look at Whiting Concrete and how they significantly outcompete the concrete vendors on Edgewater project. Like there are small companies around that can already outcompete. They don't need a leg up. They're actually quite competitive, but they're not always aware of our procurement activities. And we used to just have a few people like Steve Barry that we would just go to for some local stuff, and they're not as around as much anymore. So becoming aware of new startups in our immediate area is a challenge, and I do think that's where this tool is kind of going. But like Cape Breton was the focus because I don't know if it's the Wrens up there, whoever wanted to really try to boost local procurement within Cape Breton, and I think it applies well to our area too. But it's really not climate specific.
All right, thank you for that. Councillor Carver.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, I'd like to just revisit the question that we had the vote on a minute ago. So am I correct in understanding that during the term of this council, i.e. until 2028, we cannot revisit that particular motion?
Well, if something comes out of
Unless there's something.
Lauren's work that she's doing with the urban forest, there may be information in there that may
I think if the urban forest management plan includes within it something saying the council will explore or support the development of a bylaw, and then that plan is supported and actually approved by motion of council, reasonably you could say, well, council, why have you just approved this thing that now says you should reconsider it? Maybe that's new information. That is up to you folks. Even with new information, council still has to agree to consider something.
And I have to review the video to understand what you just said. But the point is that council cannot revisit that unless there is new information. But possibly we could consider a motion for the committee to develop.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
So there clearly is a feeling around the table that it's the committee's work to develop draft policy.
If they should wish to take it up.
If they should.
They don't have to. I think it's also implied here.
What is that television program? Will you accept this challenge?
And to that effect, I think
Mission
it's
Impossible.
more appropriate for the council to direct the work to committees versus the committees to, develop the work internally. But anyway, we'll, I think that's a motion next meeting, maybe.
Yeah, we have not restricted their ability to discuss things. They can watch this video and decide if they think it's something they want to get into. if council hasn't referred it to them, I would agree with you that there's some reason they might not jump into it. But technically, we've allowed Climate Environment and PAC and asset management to put items on their agendas that council didn't refer to them, so.
Just to be clear, it is within the mandate of this particular committee, and I believe the Planning Advisory Committee now, to generate items that come to council without having been referred by council. So if there's any question about that, it's in the terms of reference clearly for the Climate and Environment Committee. So it's perfectly procedurally correct for them to suggest items to council.
All right. So, thank you for your committee report. Are we moving on? Are we deferring nature-based solutions? That,
It sounds like because it's
Yeah.
not on people's agendas,
Okay.
it hasn't.
all right.
Yeah, which is my fault. I don't think there's a time sensitivity, so I feel like I can say it could wait till the next meeting, but if there's a feeling that everybody's prepared to move on to it, I mean, you could discuss it now if you really feel comfortable. I just don't want to make anyone feel rushed. I don't think there's any time.
Well, it would depend if people are prepared to entertain a motion from me that the nature-based solutions draft policy be referred to the Policy and Strategy Committee for consideration.
So that would, I mean, that's in order.
That would go to us anyway, right? So
Yeah,
people
Okay,
will
that's
see
my
the-
motion for
see it.
now.
Oh, second.
Okay,
And at the end of the day, it won't go to the meeting until September, so to be honest, we could make this motion at any of the next three council meetings. if we have to say it with that.
okay, all those in favor
Wait,
signify,
I just want to say it
Oh.
again out loud, because we haven't had discussion on the motion yet. This, whole topic was in fact referred by council to the Climate and Environment Committee based on the strategic plan, the 2025-29 strategic plan, which included reference to nature-based solutions in decision-making
Mhm.
by council. So there was the thread, the strategic plan, and the council directed the policy, Climate and Environment Committee to draft the policy, and it came back to the council
Okay.
as a draft policy. Again, procedurally correct.
okay. All right,
So then, now I guess. do the
any
vote
other
again.
discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify aye. Opposed, the motion is carried, thank you.
Then Kelly, before you jump in with the motion from the PAC meeting, we can't give second reading without giving first reading, so the motion, I suppose, ought to be to give first reading. That's on me. I'm sure the committee would recommend we give second reading, but we actually have to give first reading and schedule the hearing.
Yeah. Okay, so item 9.2, planning advisory, Counselor
Yeah,
Wilson.
I'm sorry, I thought we'd already done that.
Yeah, so did I.
We've already done first and second reading.
Wasn't,
This meeting, we just went second.
Well, we had the second reading before the PAC meeting.
No, that was the PIM. That was the public information meeting. No, you mean this week? No, the hearing that we had last week was the housekeeping amendments. I know it flows together, but the
Where
hearing
is
we
it?
actually had last week was on the housekeeping amendments.
Okay, I lost it.
And then in the meeting
The
after the
park.
hearing on the housekeeping amendments, we discussed the rezoning of the old school lab, but we didn't have a hearing on the rezoning of the old school lab. I know it was the same night.
Okay, so my motion is to provide first reading.
Yeah, and then we'll schedule the hearing.
Rezoning of the PIDs, which I don't have in front of me. The two.
okay,
So the two PIDs, just for reference, anybody who wasn't at the PAC meeting, there's a small PID that is a separate piece of property off of Fairmont Street that provides access from Fairmont to the old school lab property. There was a debate at PAC about whether to include both properties in the rezoning or leave that small piece of property zoned residential. And the committee's recommendation was to rezone both properties, parks and open space. And it basically hinged on the idea of continuing to retain and associate that section, at least until we have finished whatever the plans are around the park and probably going forward. So there was a lot of back and forth, but that was what was decided.
With the summary, we need a seconder.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly.
Okay. And seconded by Carver? Okay.
And then I've already said my clarified piece, so. Oh, I would get some feedback from council on scheduling of this hearing. Technically, this hearing can be scheduled to happen before the next meeting of council at 6:30. I would suggest that's fine. I don't think we're gonna get so many people turn out that we couldn't accommodate it within this room at 6:30. I will also notice, as the mayor knows, I'm not going to be here that night, but,
What are we proposing? Which night?
so on the 30th of July, where we would normally have a council meeting.
Is it possible, is that a Tuesday?
Thursday.
Like, are we trying to book meetings around every national holiday? What's our intent? We just had
really scheduled council meeting. I'm trying to avoid you having an.
yeah, like, how about September? Like,
We
what,
still have a council meeting that night, whether we change this or not.
on the 30th of,
I'm just
Yeah.
suggesting you not put an extra night on.
Fair
I'm
enough.
Suggesting you.
sorry, I'm catching up now. Consolidating the public information set, or the hearing with the council meeting.
Yeah.
I don't think you need a separate night, that's all I was saying. I think
Fair
you
enough,
just do it.
okay,
I'm trying to help you.
okay, thank you.
If I may, Mr. Hyde just said that he didn't expect much in the way of participation at the public hearing at 6:30,
Yeah.
but we had quite a large attendance at the public information meeting.
We have 5 people, but I do think we could fit 5 people in the gallery here.
And that they all speak within half an hour. Okay, but if it goes over half an hour, we
It
just,
just goes and
Okay,
counts.
great.
We're all in favor, right?
that's fine.
Yeah,
They were all,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
So Eric, you'll have to make sure this gets duly advertised tomorrow in the website and social media, or it could be this afternoon, but not later than tomorrow, in order to meet the window.
Even after second reading, it still has to get approved by the province,
Yeah.
right?
As a month. So that's what Gareth said, we'd know by the beginning of September if we put it forward from the July 30th meeting.
Okay. All good?
Just, you vote, I guess. right?
Okay, nothing else to highlight with PAC?
So we need to vote on that one.
Pardon?
We need to.
You
vote
need to
on
vote on that?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Oh,
Thank you.
see you all on the 30th. For sure.
Maybe.
10th, there's no new business, nothing, no one added, okay. Are there any questions? How many people were?
Currently 7.
7, okay. All right, so I will entertain a motion to go into closed session for items 12.1 MGA 22.2A acquisition, sale, lease, and security of municipal property, and MGA 22.2E contract negotiations. May I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Boone, and second by Councillor Wilson. Thank you. All those in favor signify aye.
Yes.
The motion is carried. Thank you all for tuning in and, or watching on YouTube at a later date. We are now going into closed session.